Father God, Lord, you know the importance of this meeting, and Lord, you know the importance of everybody here. You know what they're here for. You know their hearts, their minds. And God, I just pray today, Lord, that first of all, you forgive us of all our shortcomings and our sins. And Father, that we would always remember that you are in control of all things, no matter how we feel. And God, I pray today that this meeting will honor you and honor the people that are here. And God, there will be many decisions made with clear minds and pure hearts. And Father, we'll give you the glory for it all. For it's in your wonderful Son's name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Lindley. We move on now to awards and presentations. We'll start with the proclamation being presented by our very own Commissioner Brian Deloge, recognizing May as Older Americans Month. Commissioner Deloge? I won't throw anything.
So I'm the older American. Let's start with that. No, well, we're the adults in the room, Commissioner Lindley. Sheila, Susan, come on up. Yeah, I don't think Chris is Chris here? All right, so representing our very own award-winning senior center here, Sheila Salyer and Susan Davis, two of my favorite people. And so I will read the proclamation, and then I will brag on them for a minute, and then I will ask them to say a few words. How's that, okay? All right. Whereas Leon County, Florida includes countless older Americans who enrich and strengthen our community, and whereas our senior citizens have spent decades providing for the next generation, and our community is stronger today because of the care and dedication of our elders and their unique perspective and experiences that have endowed us with valuable wisdom and guidance. And whereas our senior citizens mentor future generations and instill core American values in them, and their guidance preserves our heritage and the invaluable lessons of the past. And whereas senior citizens play critical roles in helping support their adult children, grandchildren, and extended families, and they work for and volunteer for businesses and organizations that drive our economy and serve our community. And whereas we all acknowledge the importance of engaging in activities that promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being that empowers and enhances lives no matter your age. Now, therefore, we, the Leon County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May of 2018 as Older Americans Month. And in Leon County, we call on all residents to honor our elders, acknowledge their contributions, care for those in need, and reaffirm our county's commitment to older Americans this month and throughout the year. And it's signed by all 7 of us and our administrators, so please help me thank them. And for those of you, I was wish I was still very active in the senior center for a number of years. If you haven't been by our senior center, Sheila runs a bang-up job that runs dawn to dusk. They never sit still down there. It is full of programs end to end. And Susan, who I have known since I was 5 years old, I'd like to add, runs the program in the outlying areas, which is the county-funded program. So she is in all of the outlying areas. I know she's in Miccosukee. I know you're up in Bradfordville. I think you're in most of the rural areas offering programs once or twice a month for the seniors. And so with that, who would like to be the spokesperson here?
I've been delegated.
Our Sheila, you're in charge. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just on behalf of the older adults in the unincorporated areas, we are privileged to serve all 6 of the county communities out there. And I just want to acknowledge that Susan has been our coordinator for 15 years that you funded this program, and she's done a great job and serving a lot of folks out there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Deloge. Now, who loves their auditor? Loves our auditor. We do. I will present a proclamation recognizing International Internal Audit Awareness Month. Representatives here, come forward, please. Yeah, come on up. Madam Clerk. Proclamation reads, whereas internal auditing is a vital part of strengthening organizations and protecting stakeholders of both public and private sectors. And whereas internal auditing helps identify and manage the organization's risk and ensure policies, procedures, and controls are in place and work appropriately. And whereas internal auditing is an increasingly sophisticated and complex activity requiring specialized knowledge, training, and education. And whereas internal auditing is an established profession with a globally recognized code of ethics and international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing. And whereas the Institute of Internal Auditors, the internal audit profession's most widely recognized advocate, educator, and provider of standards, guidance, and certification, celebrates its 77th annual anniversary in 2018. And whereas historically the global internal audit profession promotes awareness about its values during the month of May each year. And whereas the contribution of internal auditors to the success of organizations in the global economy at large deserves our recognition and commendations. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Leon County Commissioners, Leon County, Florida, that the month of May is International Internal Audit Awareness Month. As greetings and best wishes are extended to all observing this month, furthermore, the Board invites the citizens of Leon County to join them in recognizing professional internal auditors for their contribution. This is signed by myself as well as the rest of the Commission and attested to by the County Administrator. Madam Clerk.
On behalf of the Clerk's Office and Clerk and Comptroller's Office, first I'd like to thank Chair Maddox and the Commission for this recognition. I also like to thank Vince Long and Alan Rosenzweig for their cooperation this year and a half. I have new internal audit staff, but it has been a great experience working with you guys, assisting, providing that transparency and accountability to county government for our citizens. So I thank you for this, again, for this recognition and the opportunity to serve you and the citizens of Leon County. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Now we have a presentation from Claudia Blackburn. Claudia, come on up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Claudia Blackburn, Department of Health in Leon County. I am here to introduce Jasmine Banks. Jasmine is a 13-year-old that is going into 8th grade at Fairview Middle School, and she is here representing the students working against tobacco to tell you what they're doing to protect youth from tobacco. Jasmine.
Good afternoon. Students Working Against Tobacco, SWAT, is Florida's statewide youth organization to mobilize, educate, and equip Florida's youth to glamorize big tobacco. The program represents a united movement of Florida-empowered youth working towards a tobacco-free future. On a local level, SWAT members advocate for policy change that would prevent youth tobacco initiation. One of our main areas of concern for policy change is point-of-sale, POS marketing, by tobacco companies. POS essentially represents the marketing of tobacco products, including electronic nicotine devices, for example, e-cigarettes and vaping, in ways that appeal to youth at checkout counters, product placement at heights closer to youth, and placements of flavored tobacco products near candy and within youth's reach. Much of this marketing takes place disproportionately among minority and low-income neighborhoods. In efforts to increase awareness about this tactical marketing in our communities, we are participating in a Photo Voice project that gives youth like me a chance to let our voices be heard about this targeted marketing and its health impact. Our project helps promote conversations and knowledge about strategic tobacco product marketing to empower our neighborhoods to reach the decision makers like yourselves. We hope to see community-inspired changes in our local neighborhoods that lead to tobacco retail licensings for healthier communities in Leon County.
Thank you. Very impressive. Very, very impressive. Now we'll move on the agenda to Commissioner Dozier making a presentation.
Ms. County Administrator, do you have?
It's right in front of you.
Look at that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right.
Were you looking for Gary? He's right there.
I got Gary. As reluctant as he may be right now, I've got Gary with me for sure. I was looking for the pin. Okay, so this is somewhat unusual, but in our presentations, we are here to celebrate 5 years of service to Leon County for my aide, Gary Zirin, who has served the people of District 5 and throughout Leon County diligently and fairly, and is celebrated by so many of them for years. And before I say anything else, you got to know how much he hates this. But I did want to take just a moment to let you know a little bit about Gary, because the commission aides, we sit here, we interact with constituents all the time. They're the ones on the phones. I was thinking about the gun show loophole and the incredible number of calls that came in, and Gary's the person they find. But it's also about trash, it is about roads, it is about all of the issues that I don't see every day that he works with our fabulous staff throughout the county on. So I did want to take a moment, because some people may not know that for over 30 years, Gary has given that same service to the state and to our community. Wow. From student government and work at FSU to the FSU Student Association, where he served as executive director. He was a special assistant to Governor Childs for several years, a legislative analyst policy analyst for the Florida legislature, obviously, at Vancouver Jones, which is where I met Gary for 10 years, and then obviously with Leon County for 5 years. Beyond that, he's a member of Tallahassee Winds and the Southern Winds, which is a statewide orchestra. And I like to joke with him or rag him a little bit that he misses our budget hearings in July often for band camp. But really, it is quite substantial. He meets with musicians from all over the state, and they give performances. And this is really quite remarkable. And with those credentials, Gary has become just this month the newest member of the Tallahassee Symphony Orchestra Board of Directors. So he is an invaluable member of our community, the county family, but also the Leon County and the state family. He's got a beautiful home, yes, Commissioner Daley, in District 3. And we're joined today by his partner, Tim Glenn, who's professor of dance at FSU. Their dog, Bodie, I'm sure, is watching from the house. And probably. And Gary, I just want to say that not 1 month has gone by in the last 5 years where someone unsolicited has not said, thank you so much. Gary is wonderful, whether it comes from staff or from constituents. The way you conduct yourself and handle the business for this community and for our office is exceptional. And I am lucky to have you, and we all are. So thank you very much.
Commissioner, the only thing worse than you presenting that in front of the whole county is me asking him to share a few words.
And Mr. Chair, I promised I wouldn't do that, so I am off the hook
you
right
would.
now. Yes,
you
sir.
said nothing about me. Gary, why don't you tell us about your experience with the county?
Thank you.
I had to do it.
Thank you. It's just an honor to work for the county. It's an honor to work for Kristen, Commissioner Dozier. It's just great. I mean, I've enjoyed every day that I've come to work here, and plan to keep on doing it.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for your service. As we take that picture, we'll move now to consent. Mr. Administrator, are there any items pulled from consent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 items pulled from consent, item 7 and item 21.
Item 7 and item 21 has been pulled from consent. Item 7 by staff, item 21 by Commissioner Proctor. Is there a motion to move the rest of consent? The rest of consent has been moved by Commissioner Deloge. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lindley. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll move on now to items pulled from consent. Item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 7 was actually pulled by Commissioner Dozier. It's the modification of the eligibility of the CRA's allocation of tourism development taxes through Arts, Culture, and Heritage, the grant program. I will defer to Commissioner Dozier, but we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. County Administrator. I very much appreciate my first commission meeting I ever missed was our last one, and it was very odd not to be here with you all. Thank you for adding this item to the agenda. I would have supported it at the time. Given that the CRA and the city have pulled this item from their agendas, I wanted to ask a procedural question about removing it or voting against it instead of taking it up on consent, because I think it's kind of a moot point. For me, I don't want something just hanging out there. If for any reason the grant did not go through, those applications are due this Thursday, we would be back here in July and after that in discussion with the city about next steps. And I think that's an entirely different conversation than who is eligible for this particular process. So I would like to either vote against it or simply withdraw this item. I don't know if there's even a procedure where we could do that, but that was going to be my suggestion.
Commissioner Dozier, I believe that under board direction, we could just vote to keep the MOU as is. You can make that motion, it could be seconded, and we could take a vote there. Is that correct? Interlocal agreement, yes. Yeah, interlocal agreement.
That excellent suggestion, Mr. Chair. So I would move to keep the interlocal as approved at our previous meetings and make no change.
Is there a second? Motion been made by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Lindley to keep our interlocal agreement with the City of Tallahassee and the CRA about the performing arts money. I don't know what else to call it. As is, I have Commissioner Proctor in queue to speak. Commissioner Proctor.
Mr. Chairman, can you tell us exactly what this motion achieves by?
All the motion does, Commissioner Proctor, is go back to where we are, where the MOU states that it will only entertain grant proposals that are within the CRA. It goes right back to that moment where we're only entertaining grant proposals that are within the CRA. It makes no changes at all to the interlocal agreement that we've had in the past.
Well, I was not sure about that, and what's bothering me is that on the application guidelines, it says that because the funds used to implement the selected applications or tourist development tax funds, all proposals must meet the 125 Florida statute requirement for the expenditure of the bed taxes as described. And in Chapter 125, I just don't see any basis for the CRA to be spending up the bed taxes. I think that what would bring justice to this is that the CRA's name should be, a line should be drawn through it, or we white out CRA. The City Commission, the County Commission, and the TDC are sufficient bodies. It was indeed the County Commission that authorized and gave rise to the bed tax. The CRA never had any say in the bed tax at all. And I find it strange that somehow the CRA has wiggled itself, snaked or slimed its way to having a controlling voice over money, that a pot that has nothing to do with them. Secondly, to constrain the jurisdictional lines with which this money is to be invested, it certainly was money that was collected from hotels out there on Highway 90 and on the east side, hotels off of up on the north side, Thomasville Road area, hotels that are, most of them not even in the so-called CRA area. In fact, the DoubleTree is there. The Governor's Money Club is there, hotel. And I'm not even sure if Prince Muret Hotel is in the CRA. So you got two of them. So here's a load of bed tax money that didn't come out of this area. Even if you came and said that the money came out of this area geographically, ain't but two hotels down there. So what was purposed to be money dedicated to a performing arts center had zero to do. And I challenge that. I think this is illegal, what we're doing. And we should not, we don't have a statutory basis that 125 gives the CRA to have a say over money that was brought by the county commission. And so I disagree with that. I think that what would be the right thing to do, in spite of a horrible heist or takeover, powers that are being exercised by an entity that has absolutely no statutory basis to be in charge of this money. And the area which we want to put the money certainly ain't the area that we gathered. And when you look at the principle of the CRA works inverse to what we're saying. The CRA actually captures the dollars that come specifically from that area. This money specifically comes outside of the area, frankly. We're doing the opposite thing. And therefore, I'm very uncomfortable going in this direction. I think that to make a bad situation palatable maybe, is that we would take the jurisdictional lines down and allow anybody who would purpose to do the functions that are outlined for performing arts with all the other ingredients that are being qualifiers for people to receive this money, but that this money, being that 90% of it came from outside the CRA area, everybody should have a right to apply. And the thing about a entertainment venue, our cultural venue, I don't think that it's that specific to, but I think that what we're driving is the functionality of culture. And what we're driving toward is a generation of art. And to say that, to do that would only need to be specifically in Frenchtown or downtown, I'm not all that comfortable with that. So those are my thoughts, Ms. Chairman. I'll let it roll around, and I'd like to make a substitute motion to say that I move that we would open up the RFP for all venues within the city limits of Tallahassee.
Substitute motion has been made by Commissioner Prado that we open up the RFP for the bed tax money to include all entities within Leon County. I'm sorry, the city of Tallahassee. Is there a second to that motion? Motion has been seconded by Commissioner Lindley for conversation. I don't think there's a problem there, but just to make sure. Mr. Attorney, there is no problem with seconding two motions, is there?
No.
Good. That means we're in good fashion here. All right. So we have a substitute motion on the floor by Commissioner Proctor to open up the RFP to all venues within the city of Tallahassee, and motion on the floor by Commissioner Dozier to keep the RFP as is, or the interlocal agreement as is. Commissioner Lindley, you have the floor, followed by Commissioner Dozier.
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting concept, but I was just wondering if the county attorney could sort of refresh us. When we created the interlocal agreement that moved the bed tax money to the CRA for management, basically, I'm assuming this would be quite a process to undo that interlocal agreement, or try to do that if that's
the desire of this board and others. I mean, I see some logic in what you're saying. However, the deadline is it Thursday on folks in the community who have in good faith come forward with ideas for how they would like to be using this money. So I'm interested in what you have to say. That money has been sort of hanging around, and I hope an interest-bearing account for at least 2 years and possibly 3. So we're kind of far down the road to just go back and undo and start over. So I'm interested in what you say, but I kind of think the train has left the station on that, and at this point, maybe it's not something I would support at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My purpose in this is to keep things clean, because we have been waiting 2.5 years, as the community has been, for some action on these dollars that have been housed within CRA. Those who've been on the CRA board know that we have been through numerous painful conversations about this. And in fact, I made the same motion to bring the TDC tax back over to TDC and county control in February, just weeks before we learned from CRA that a process had already been established. So I was content, I think we all were, letting that process play out because we finally had one. At this point, people have had the grant opening, the RFP opening for 2 months. That is not a cheap process for organizations to work with their partners to come up with a plan, and it is due on Thursday. So I cannot support changing the process at this time. I think that would be disingenuous to those who have worked so hard. My hope was to keep this clean so that we didn't have something hanging out there relating to a grant that has already been given away, or if the committee comes back and says none of these proposals work, that sets up the next conversation. And sure, at that time, I would love to talk about whether or not we need to move this money back to TDC and county control to do another grant or something else. But I think at this point, we need to let this committee go forward. And those groups that have been working on presentations, on applications for the last 2 months or more years, let that process play out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Pratton, in queue to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Lion's share of this money comes outside of the Frenchtown area. There's no question that this is a contradiction to the way in which CRA monies work. CRA money comes specifically from within the CRA. It's dedicated or reinvested in specifically the CRA. This is money that don't come from the CRA. It comes from at-large monies that have been generated. To be honest, I think most of the downtown area is in District 1. To be honest, I think the South Side District in the Frenchtown area is actually in District 1. I'm comfortable with that. So to the extent that this money would be placed in District 1, I recognize. But I also recognize that 90% of the money is at large taken up. And unless we just impose something and we recognize that let's be clear that we're recognizing that the logic with which we're flowing with, it goes in it clashes with the CRA logic for monies. This ain't consistent with 125 statute. This has nothing to do with the CRA. I'm not sure exactly how it got hijacked, but to preclude, and let's be clear about maybe a little stronger word, to discriminate, and that's what we're doing. We're setting up a discriminatory process that disallows, for the purposes of culture and art, the locale of a venue, an investment of $1. And it seems to me that we're saying that the fairground wouldn't qualify for this money, I don't think. And every other place, so many other places, maybe in your district, wouldn't qualify as well. I think that this is not the right approach. There may be other options out there, but we should give everybody a chance. And we should not load up the dice and say that the dice can only fall in favor of the downtown or the Frenchtown, Southside areas for disbursement of this dollars. This just doesn't make sense. And I use the word discrimination, and even in the presence of the president of NAACP being in the building today. And I don't use that word very often, but even with him there, I'm sensitive. But this to me is a certain kind of reverse economic discrimination. So I've said my piece, and I thank you for allowing for a discussion to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. There's a substitute motion on the floor that we will open up the RFP in our interlocal agreement to include all entities within Leon County. I have no more commissioners in queue to speak. Commissioner Proctor, I believe that's you from just now, correct?
Sir?
Yes, that is. All right. All those in favor of the substitute motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against?
No.
Aye. Motion fails. We'll move now to the motion on the floor by Commissioner Dozier to keep the RFP, our interlocal agreement, as is. That's seconded by Commissioner Lilly. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying.
Speak to the motion, to this motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if I might.
Oh, I didn't see it. Go ahead.
I just want to weigh in and say that I've been very, very frustrated that the way the CRA has done projecting, and that all projects begin with Roxanne Manning. And if she vets them and they meet her singular approval, we might get a chance to see them. Their projects and their offerings for consideration by the CRA board that have never come to the light of day. I believe last year I forwarded to each of you instances where we never saw projects that were submitted. The process with which the CRA at the head of this is not a good one. I don't like it. And I think that the TDC is a stronger board. I think that it has the ilk, it has imagination, and it has cultural competence in this area to do. CRA, I'm not saying it's a butcher that needs to do fine surgery, but I'm saying that the cultural community of the TDC would be a much, to my liking, more suited. They have a squeaky clean record. There's no FBI looks at them or reviews of them. They have a perfect management record, and I'm just much more comfortable with this money not going through the claws of the CRA. I just don't like that. We have a poor administrative approach to doing this. It's been widely talked about, publicized. We have a chance to do better. Why don't we pull up and not go there?
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Motion on the floor is to keep the interlocal agreement as is. That motion made by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those against?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1 with Commissioner Proctor in dissent. Moving now to item number 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, item number 21 is your second quarter 2018 economic dashboard report. This item was pulled by Commissioner Proctor, and I have one speaker card on this item.
Commissioner Proctor.
Mr. Chairman, I got a request for a citizen to pull this, and anytime I receive a citizen's request to want to comment, I try to pull the matter. So I want to hear from the citizen.
Dr. Holyfield, you are the citizen on this item. Mr. Dr. Holyfield from Lone Leaf Court. I just saw him. Oh, okay. I'm looking all around the place. Name and address for record, please, sir.
Dr. Holyfield, Lone Leaf Court. I have a suggestion for y'all in regard to this Office of Economic Vitality, as y'all call it. I would suggest a name change. I would change the name to the Office of Economic Propaganda, because that's what it is. It's propaganda. Now, I pulled this off my computer the other day, item 21, and let me just give you an example. Unemployment, let's say at 3.6%. What does that mean? It means absolutely nothing. It's not broken down. The data needs to be disaggregated. What's the black unemployment rate? Y'all know? What's the white unemployment rate? What's the disparity? Instead, we get this meaningless data that makes it almost impossible to act on. You say the jobs have increased. I don't know what it was, 2.1% or something like that. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean in terms of the quality of those jobs? Does it mean that you have more black people working for Mark O'Brien at TMH at $9.25 an hour? Could any of y'all live on $9.25 an hour? Deloach, could you live on $9.25 an hour? Y'all call that progress, so you put it in this sham report, which is basically a feel-good report, which gives no practical or meaningful options. And no community can have economic vitality if the children are being screwed. And that's what we got in Leon County. 25% childhood hunger rate. Y'all should be ashamed. 80% childhood poverty rate in South City. Y'all should be ashamed. Instead, y'all have worthless reports like this that mean absolutely nothing. Y'all remember that half-cent sales tax, which would have generated $18 million? And Deloach and Massa and the chamber fought to bid her in to kill it? I tell you, that the same thing is going to happen now. Y'all might as well just open the checkbook and give it to the chamber and the leadership Tallahassee types and say, okay, y'all run local government, because that is absolutely what's happening now. Back in 2004, I wrote a letter to the Democrat.
Dr. Holyfield, wrap it up.
I'm going to finish this. I wrote a letter to the Democrat, and I said that black infant mortality in Leon County was 25% higher than the state average. And what has been the political response? Y'all have given more money to the Red Hills horse trials. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I received an ask from Dr. Holyfield to pull this item. I had commented on this report in previous submissions, and I had indicated that I thought that it was an insufficient indicator of some of the crises, some of the more sensitive sociological data, some of it that was hinted on by Dr. Holyfield. And I think that even with the Alice report here, which sits before me this afternoon that we had on May 8th, somehow the information of the Alice report is difficult to, I mean, it's easy rather to see how this report gets submersed in the overview of, and when you don't pull out the particular strata, sociological strata of people, you really can't determine how we're faring when there's just a big brush that, you know. So I've commented on that previously. I don't see much improvement over remarks that I made previously. So I just take that it's a commitment that has not been made to address those concerns. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There's no motion on the floor. Staff recommendation been moved by Commissioner Deloach, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Move now to general business. I'm sorry, citizens to be heard on non-agenda items. Mr. Administrator, do we have any citizens to be heard?
We do not.
Move now to general business. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this item seeks your authorization and direction relative to the implementation of the Hurricane Irma After Action Report in preparation for the 2018 hurricane season. Before you is a status report on the county's progress in implementing all 65 recommendations contained in that Hurricane Irma After Action Report, which you all will recall, and provides an overview of the preparation for our 2018 hurricane season. Commissioners, as you know, following any large-scale emergency event, we conduct an extensive after-action report, which assesses the preparedness, response, and recovery activities taken and identifies strengths and weaknesses related to those efforts, as well as recommendations for improvements during future emergencies. The Hurricane Irma After Action Report, Commissioners, include 95 findings and 65 specific recommendations, which I'm proud to report to you all have been implemented at this point in time. You'll recall that bringing this back to you at this point was one of those actions. And again, very proud to report to you that all have been implemented at this time and just in time for you all to receive an update on the 2018 hurricane season, which comes next. So again, Commissioners, as a result of the past two after-action reports in the county's strengthened partnerships, refined disaster plans, and resiliency efforts, and the county and community continues to become even more prepared for the next hurricane season. I've asked Matt Cavell and Kevin Peters to provide the board with a brief update on our upcoming preparedness activities, as well as a brief overview of the forecasted hurricane season. And with that, Matt is making his way to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Chairman, Commissioners, as the Administrator has said many times in the past, we use every emergency as an opportunity to extract as many lessons possible. And, well, we've held class in back-to-back years, with Hermine in 2016 and Irma in 2017. Out of that, as the County Administrator had said, we've implemented all recommendations from both after-action reports, such that we are now a leader across the nation in disaster resilience. One of the things that I'm going to do is just provide a real brief overview of those two after-action reports, some of the big highlights out of those, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin because words matter. So as we look towards the hurricane season, not forward to the hurricane season, we look towards the hurricane season in 2018, what that might look like. So for starters, for Hermine, one of the big recommendations that had happened from that was the returning of emergency management to the county, which had set the groundwork by the County Administrator's action to establish community relations and resilience. As a result, that prepared us very much for Irma, which, as the County Administrator had said, led to 65 recommendations which were implemented. Some of those big ones we just recently had brought before the board, which was the improvement, further enhancement of sheltering operations in partnership with Leon County Schools and the American Red Cross. In addition, we further enhanced debris removal to make sure that we get all the resources in the field as fast as possible and get everything removed as fast as possible. So between those two after-action reports, which again are focused on our ability to learn and improve, we were also designated this year Hurricane Strong by both FLASH, the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, and FEMA. They said that we were a model community that now more than a dozen other communities, both here in the nation and internationally, want to pursue that same designation and that same commitment to building disaster resilience. So again, as our commitment to a learning organization has shown, we are now more prepared than ever before for the upcoming hurricane season. Now, again, as we look towards that 2018 season, I want to invite up Kevin to provide a brief forecast or overview of what we think it may be. Kevin?
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Administrator, Commissioners, thank you for the time. So as we look toward, not forward to, hurricane season, many of the predictions and updated predictions that many of the weather organizations provide, they're due out over the next 2 weeks. The main one that's out is from Colorado State University. They're the pioneers in hurricane season forecasting. In April 2018, they called for 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes this hurricane season. Now, Colorado State considers their April forecast to have low skill, so they do provide updates at the end of May, which May 31st will be the next update. They also provide updates at the beginning of July and August through the hurricane season. And this August update is just at the peak, or right before the peak of hurricane season, which is in September. Now, that being said, at a recent conference, the lead researcher with Colorado State did hint that there's a possibility that they may be backing their hurricane season forecast down just a little bit. to a near normal hurricane season, which would be somewhere around 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 2 major hurricanes. The reasons they are citing is below average water temperatures across the tropical Atlantic Ocean, about 1 or 2 degrees below average right now in the Atlantic, and a transition out of La Nina conditions to a neutral kind of between El Nino and La Nina phase, with models hinting that we'll see a shift to El Nino as we move through the summer, fall, and into the winter. Now, if an El Nino does set in, those typically suppress the development of hurricanes in the tropical Atlantic. And typically we see less active hurricane seasons during El Ninos. But I'd like for everybody to keep in mind that less than normal hurricane seasons or just normal hurricane seasons can still be dangerous. Back in June of 1992, Colorado State produced a forecast for that season of a very below average season with 8 named storms, 4 hurricanes, and 1 major hurricane. And as we all know, they were right with that 1 major hurricane forecast. That was Hurricane Andrew, ripped through southern Miami-Dade County with $26.5 billion in damages, and 26 Floridians lost their lives. So it only takes 1 storm to make a disaster in your community, and there's been no hurricane seasons with 0 storms. So the key at this point, as we move over the next couple weeks, is to stay informed, take a look at what the updates to the forecasts that come out. The United States government, NOAA, the National Hurricane Center, their seasonal forecast is due out Thursday, May 24th. So that'll be our first indication of what the scientists are thinking about hurricane season. And like I said, May 31st, Colorado State, the pioneers in hurricane forecasting for seasons, their update comes out. But again, staying informed for those forecasts, watching our local weather throughout hurricane season to look for storms as they develop. And then if we do have development, staying in tune with Leon County's Emergency Information Portal and downloading the Leon County Citizens Connect app. Those are ways to stay informed and get the information that we will need, that you will need, that our citizens will need as we move through hurricane season. And just a couple notes, there is an area of disturbed weather in the Gulf of Mexico right now. Not unheard of. We had a very similar situation last week, by the way. At this point, 40% possibility for tropical development over the next 5 days. Initial guidance from the National Weather Service is for an area of low pressure. I'm not calling it tropical yet, but to brush across the central Gulf of Mexico, making a landfall, if you will, near Mobile, Alabama. Over the next 7 days, possibility of 4 to 5 inches of rain across the North Florida area. And right now, we're about 1 inch above average for the month. We've had about 3 inches of rain so far this month. We've been in contact with Tony Park and our public works partners. They keep a close watch on our stormwater and our hydrologic conditions, and we're watching this very closely. And as you know, as we've practiced the last 2 years, and we hope we don't have to this year, but we're ready to snap into action should this form up and implement all the great lessons learned from our last 2 after-action reports.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Prattner? No, sir. All right. Let me see from last time. Is there a motion? Staff recommendation moved by Commissioner Lindley. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Loge. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not to belabor this, because we've heard now several years of good prep for hurricane season and after-action reports, but I just didn't want to go without saying that Mr. County Administrator, you, your staff, Matt, Kevin, are nationally recognized, and you've done an exceptional job. So going into last year's hurricane season, I was more comfortable than I'd ever been, and I think everyone in the community does and should feel that way going into this season. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. A motion on the floor is by Commissioner Lindley for staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll move on now to item number 23. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this item is a report on the establishment of an independent Children's Services Council district. Commissioners, you will recall that the board requested this item at your March 27th meeting. Following my introductory comments, John Moyle, representing our Kids First, a political action committee that's been formed to support the passage of the referendum, is available to provide an update to the board. As detailed in your materials, Commissioners, staff has performed an extensive literature review, again, which focuses on children's issues in Leon County. Admittedly, it is an aggregation and a synthesis of existing data, again, about 30 recent and relevant state, national, and local reports. And while many of the areas we are shown to be outperforming the state, there are still significant points that reflect underperformance related to this issue when compared to the state. However, again, we have to point out that these comparisons are being made to the state of Florida, which as a whole ranks near the bottom in overall child well-being when compared to the rest of the country. Commissioners, at this point in time, I'm prepared to hand it off to Mr. Moyle. I will just remind you that we have a public hearing scheduled for June 19th to consider final action on placing this matter on the ballot. And I've got about 8 speaker cards, but I've got Mr. Moyle in the queue if the board would like to hear from him at this point.
Mr. Moyle, come on up. Commissioners, if you could hold your questions until after the presentation. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm here today at your request after the last meeting, and when you voted unanimously to set this for a public hearing in June, you said collectively to us, please come back and give us a report. So I've prepared some remarks. I probably am going to run past the light colors, but if I could, I want to inform you as to what's been done since our last meeting. Lawyers, and I'm a lawyer, John Moyle from the Moyle Law Firm, have a tradition of when they're addressing a body of introducing who they're representing. And as the county administrator said today, since last time we were before you, there's been a new entity formed called Our Kids First, and that's a political action committee. So I can say that I'm appearing on behalf of Our Kids First today. And in a lot of discussions I've had, I've been thinking about this, and I don't have an official agreement, but I'd also like to say that I'm appearing on behalf of the at-risk and kids in need in our community. And so I appreciate the conversations that we have had to date about the creation of a Children's Services Council. It's been in front of you twice, and you voted twice unanimously to move forward with that. So what I would like to do today is update you on the steps that we have taken since we were last together, and then also talk to you about our plan for success and what we see going forward. So let me start with the steps that we have taken. I have provided your offices with a written document. It was not provided to you just until a few hours beforehand, so I wanted to take a minute and just outline the highlights of that. We have formed a leadership council that has come together, and I'm happy to report that it represents a broad cross-section of our community in terms of diversity, race, gender, and politically. These Children's Services Councils have been supported in a bipartisan fashion throughout the state, and there's no different why that should not be the case here. And I'm happy to report that we have a diverse group of people who have raised their hands and agreed to help lead this effort. Moni Brown, who you heard from last time, is here. We are going to have a lot of people at the June public hearing that you all have asked.
Excuse me, John. Could you turn off the timer? Thank you. Keep going, John.
Thank you. We plan to have a lot of people to address you as when we met before, you laid out a plan and said, okay, here's the plan. We're moving forward. Can you give us an update? Staff has given you a report, and so we are looking forward to the meeting in June. I do just want to take a minute and recognize a few people of the leadership committee who are here today. Jim Wiley, Don Hinkle, Mimi Graham, Lori Dozier. I mentioned Moni and Bill Graham. This person is not part of the leadership council, but Judge Shustrom is also here, and he spoke to you at the last meeting. So I wanted to let you know the leadership council is formed. It's not done. We're open and welcome to continuing to expand that leadership council. But again, I think it represents a good cross-section of our community who are prepared to move this forward to be successful. We've also formed an advocacy council. There are a host of not-for-profits that potentially will be partners with the council if it's created, and these entities will be executing on plans to address specific problems. We ask that those people form an advocacy council because potentially they may be recipients, and we thought it was better to have that separate from a leadership council. So the advocacy council is formed. In your packet, you have some letters of support from a number of organizations, and just like the leadership council, this is not it. As we move forward, we expect more to join the advocacy council. I mentioned the formation of Our Kids First. That is a political committee. In a weak moment, I agreed to chair that, and so I have a little bit of empathy for what you all have to go through with reporting all the information about people who donate. But I am pleased that Ron Meyer from the Meyer and Brooks Law Firm has agreed on a pro bono basis to help the effort, and Debbie Leonard with Thomas Hal Ferguson also agreed on a pro bono basis to help keep us straight with respect to our reports. I'm happy to report that we have over $40,000 that we have raised that's in the bank. That is a good number. We have retained Vancore Jones to help run the campaign. They have said that's a very good number, particularly at this stage where we're 30 days from a public hearing, and we'll continue to raise money and be prepared to move forward if you all vote to green light this and wave the green flag and say, okay, it's going to be on the ballot, now run your campaign. So we are look forward to working with you all to implement that. A lot of people have said, well, how do you know you're going to be successful? And we don't. I mean, I think the group is committed to working hard, to rolling up their sleeves and spending time educating people, having a community conversation. I think that community conversation has already started. But we also have conducted a poll, and we went into the field and got a poll conducted by Vancore Jones, and it came back with a very positive number that more than 2 to 1 in our community, people support the creation of a Children's Services Council. The number was 68%. So I'm not a pro in the political world, but I've been told those are very, very good numbers, and so we're encouraged by that. We've had a lot of meetings and discussions since our last meeting. We're open to dialogue and discussions with all groups, including groups who have suggestions for other ways maybe to proceed, different time frames. We have asked people to help lead, help partner. People have ideas, but we really feel strongly that we should move forward with this. Others who are supporting that, we're happy that the sheriff has agreed to help lead this effort. He has been very gracious and said, what can I do to help? Juvenile crime is something that is featured pretty prominently in your report. We have a pretty big problem with juvenile crime. We are above the state average in juvenile arrest, in burglary, in grand larceny, and auto theft. And those are not good statistics for our community, our county. And we continue to read in the Democrat about how we're high in crime. The sheriff, respectfully, and others are saying, well, let's do something about that. Let's quit talking about it, and let's do something about that. So we're pleased that the sheriff is going to help lead the effort. Also, the state attorney, Jack Campbell, has agreed to be supportive and have his name be used publicly to help lead the effort, and we're pleased about that. The agenda item that you all put together was nearly 1,500 pages. It was pretty comprehensive. It was pretty vast. And a lot of people in the room are a lot smarter than I am about the particulars of all of those programs. I looked at it, again, at a high level and had some conversations, and I think it pointed out a couple of areas that should warrant additional focus. I've already touched on juvenile crime, and I think juvenile crime is something that the Children's Services Council, should it be approved and formed, could focus on that. And the other is early childhood development. Early childhood development is a key area. We're not doing great in terms of school readiness. A lot of kids are not entering school ready to learn. I will tell you, at a recent leadership council meeting we had, there was a discussion. Sally Bradshaw, who's agreed to serve on the leadership council, is a big advocate for reading. She runs a bookstore, and the discussion focused on third grade reading level, and that said if you can read at third grade, that's a very significant indicator that you're going to be successful. You're going to graduate from high school. And the sheriff said when he was the Department of Corrections head that reading at third grade level was an indicator they used to determine how many prison beds they need. To me, that was a pretty staggering revelation that third grade reading is a predictor of prison beds. So from our perspective, focusing on early childhood development would be a key issue and effort that we would urge the council to pursue. I said juvenile crime. Juvenile mental health is also something that's important. We are ahead of our other counties in the state of Florida in Baker Act commitments, infant deaths and childhood poverty. But with all that's going on, we specifically thought calling out mental health would be something that would be appropriate. So that's a quick highlight of the analysis that we have done. In the written report that I provided to you, there's some additional information on this, and there's some additional information about programs that other counties have put in place. Because people are asking me, well, John, we understand this, but what are the types of programs that will be done? And I said, well, the council will make that decision. I think we can make recommendations, and if we were asked today, what are your recommendations, they would be to focus on early childhood development and juvenile crime and mental health. But again, that's something that will be determined, but I think we can make recommendations, and hopefully they would give some weight to the recommendations. Let me just spend a minute and tell you the response to the question. Give me an example of some programs that other counties are doing. One that has surfaced to the top in a number of conversations is, it's either Martin or St. Lucie has a program that every baby that's born has a registered nurse visit the mom and the child within a short period of time after the birth. And they go in and they're invited in. They do a check of the mom postpartum. They see how the mom and the baby are doing. And in some conversations with some educators recently, they said, that sounds like a great idea because moms are the first teachers of kids. And if we could go in and put that program in place and have moms be told the importance of teaching the kids, eventually reading to the kids, we could really make some strides. There was part of the conversation that we had. So we are excited about the steps that we have taken. We think we're making progress, and I wanted to give you that report per your request. Steps forward for success. I've been thinking about what to say during these points, and I think that after giving a lot of thought, I think we need to talk a little bit of strategy about how to be successful, and talk a little bit about politics. And I'm also going to touch on a recent My View that was authored by Dave Lawrence. So people are saying to us, people who know politics better than I do, to say, you have 68% of the people in favor of this. It's going to be successful at the ballot box. if I were not wanting this to move forward at this point in time, I would do everything I could to try to not have it go to the ballot box and to raise questions and to work to not have you all approve it. You've had 7-0 votes to move this forward. We appreciate that, and we hope that it'll continue to move forward. But I think, a lot of questions that I'm hearing are questions, frankly, that have already been before you, such as, well, wait, we have this homestead issue coming up. Isn't that going to, to have an impact? I mean, that in the first staff analysis that your staff did and wrote up, they outlined the plan that you all have already identified, a glide path to where you make some cuts, and then potentially, if this passes, you have to raise the millage less than a half a mil. It's 0.4 mils. But that surely, in terms of this discussion, you move it forward. The people are going to make this decision. It's going to be on the ballot, and the voters will have an opportunity to vote it up or down. So that's an issue that has been out there for some time, and respectfully, we would suggest that we don't know whether it's going to pass, and it would be. Let me just say that I think this was something that came out of the House Speaker's office. To put this on the ballot. I think the counties are planning to run an opposition campaign on that. We don't know whether it's going to pass or not, but I would respectfully suggest I don't think that's a good reason to not move forward to try to help kids. Another point, and Mr. Lawrence, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, said, be open, be transparent. And one of the points I want to share with you and let you know that we're giving consideration to this is when, assuming you all act favorably on it, when should this go on the ballot? Should it go in August or should it go in November? And Mr. Proctor, you had asked me that question previously. When do you think it should go? And my response was probably the general, because that will bring a good turnout. And I still think it's important to have a lot of people consider this. But at the point in time when we were having the conversation, the Constitutional Revision Commission had not finished their work. They've now finished their work, and they have decided to put 13 questions on the ballot. If this question were on the ballot in November, it would be number 14. Some political folks are saying, that might be challenging to have it be number 14, and there's some risk about the Greyhounds, they're trying to get rid of Greyhound racing. There are a lot of things in these constitutional amendments. Somebody may say, let's just go a vote no campaign. So there's some discussion, and no final decision has been made, and ultimately it's a decision that you would have to make as to when to put this forward. But I wanted to just let you know there is some discussion about that, and given that in the primary we're going to have an election, a primary for both governor on the Republican side, between Mr. Putnam and Mr. DeSantis, and on the Democratic side, between Gwen Graham and the mayor, Andrew Gillum, and some other Democrat candidates. We think it'll be a good turnout, and to achieve the objective of having a lot of people look at that, we're giving that consideration. Some have said, John, this is too important of an issue to have muddied up behind, a whole bunch of constitutional issues. Why would we not want to put it out there? And we want to make sure that we're being fair and having time for having the discussion. But someone recently told me Broward County, in terms of timing, there's been a lot of questions about, well, now's not the right time, you need more time. Broward County went in a 6-month time frame and went from start to finish on their plan. So I think every county is different as to how they approach it. I know Miami-Dade spent a lot more time in approaching it. But I wanted to make that point. Mr. Lawrence recently wrote a My View, and I want to start just by saying I know Dave Lawrence, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He was a giant in the newspaper business, and he's done wonderful things for kids in Miami-Dade County. I used to live in Miami-Dade County. Before I moved to Tallahassee, I was practicing law down there. It's a community that's vastly different from Leon County. The numbers on it, the statistics, it has nearly 2.7 million people in it. The number that Google told me on Leon County was approximately 300,000. So it's nearly 1/10 the size of Miami-Dade County. Having lived there, you need some time to get your arms around Miami-Dade County. It's big geographically, it's quite diverse, and it takes some time, I think, to get your arms around it. Mr. Lawrence made a decision that we needed to take more time, and that was right for them. But respectfully, we're our own community. I think Tallahassee, one of the virtues of it is you can get your arms around it pretty quickly. It's a community that you run into a lot of people in the grocery store, and I don't think that we need 2 years to have this conversation. I think we can do it and educate people in less time than that. This part of the presentation is a little different for me because I was under the impression for a very long time that today would be a report as your administrator gave that said, here, we've done this. It's a nearly 1,500 page agenda item, and then that I would give a report and we would be off to the public hearing. There have been some recent developments which may raise a question. Is that really the path we're on? Are we going to have the public hearing? And I would say I sure hope so. I sure hope so because we have been meeting with people. We have been telling people that this commission has acted and said, we're going to have a public hearing in June. Come out to that public hearing. That is when it is the time for you all to hear from people, good, bad, or indifferent, as to whether a Children's Services Council is something that should be put on the ballot. And I would respectfully ask that today you all adopt the report and move forward with public hearing. There'll be questions. If you have specific issues that you're concerned about and you say, I would really like for the public or for members of the public to address X and Y at that hearing, then I think that could be done. But I think that voting today, if you decide to say, we've heard enough about Children's Services Councils, thank you, I think that would send a bad message and the wrong message to those who are willing to put their time, energy, effort, and money into this. And I think you have a very capable lawyer, but it kind of has not, at least from my perspective, been noticed in a way that would allow us to properly prepare and have people come if today was going to be the day. So I don't think it would be a good idea. We'd be disappointed if you all opted not to move forward with the public hearing. I mean, after all, you all provide a public service. You commit your time to this. You raised your hand to be in public office, and part of that is hearing from the public. And I would respectfully request that you hear from the members of this community as to how they view this issue, and then make the decision up or down as to whether to put it on the ballot that you think is best. So, Mr. Chairman, you've been very gracious to give me some time to share some thoughts. There are others here that may have thoughts that they want to share as part of the group, but thank you for allowing me to share some comments.
Thank you, Ms. Moyle. We have 8 speaker cards. Mr. Any questions for Mr. Moyle? I have 8 speaker cards. Mr. Administrator, start from the top.
The first speaker is Jessica Lowe Minor.
Ms. Lowe Minor, name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jessica Lowe Minor. I live at 407 Vintage Ride, Tallahassee, Florida 32303. I wanted to echo Mr. Moyle's wonderful comments, and I also hope that you will continue to collect information on this, continue to receive input from your constituents, and will ultimately decide to move forward with the public hearing on June 19th before making a decision. There have been a couple of things that have come out about CSCs in the last few days that I just wanted to perhaps clarify or provide some additional information. One question that has been raised about this issue in particular is whether or not this CSC would potentially be a vehicle for funding duplicative services, or if there would be somehow duplication of efforts because of the presence of a CSC in that funding. And I want to say that that has been the opposite of what has happened in other CSC communities. So typically what we see is that CSCs are actually a vehicle for collective impact. And by that I mean that because they have this kind of umbrella position in the community as a funder, they're able to look at what are the services that are currently being offered, where are the gaps, and to actually direct funding to those gaps as opposed to using other perhaps less sophisticated methods of determining funding allocations. And so what we've seen is that particularly Broward County, their CSC is a leader in the nation for the model that we call collective impact. And I think it would be really exciting to have a funding entity in our community that actually has the resources and the space to serve in that role, because we haven't been able to achieve collective impact in this community, particularly because many of our funding sources are rather small. They're kind of separated. Some funding sources are only available for certain types of agencies, but not others. And so I think having a Children's Services Council here could really increase the efficiency of the provision of services in this community, and could also provide data collection vehicles that some of our nonprofits currently don't have or don't have access to, as well as the reporting and the transparency that the CSC model offers. So in terms of that issue, I really think a CSC could provide a valuable solution. The other issue that has come up is about the accountability of the CSC, and I want to emphasize that this body would actually be responsible for either selecting the names of 5 of the appointees. You guys would put forward a list of names that would then be finally picked from by the governor, whoever that person may be. But then you also, one of you would be serving yourself on the CSC. So literally the county commission would control a quorum of the appointees or the members of the CSC. And of course, at any time, if this body felt like the CSC was not fulfilling its obligations or was acting in a way that was inappropriate or unintended, you can call for the CSC to be disbanded. So I think knowing that is really important. There's a lot of built-in accountability into the statute. And of course, we as a community trust you all to enforce that accountability. So thank you very much for what you're doing and for your decision. And we hope that you'll keep this conversation moving until June 19th. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Cicely Brantley, to be followed by Don Hinkle.
Name and address for the record, please, ma'am. Once you get to the podium.
Hi, my name is Cicely Brantley. My address is 8382 Glendalen Road, Tallahassee, 32311.
Thank you.
I am here to speak on behalf of the Tallahassee-Leon County Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. We are a body of 21 local women appointed by the Board of County Commissioners in 2011. Since that time, in 2011, the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls has published 4 comprehensive reports that were all pertaining to the status of women and girls in our community, and they highlighted the issues that affect the women and all of our women and girls. Most recently, the Status of Girls was published in October 2017, and we're very pleased that these reports, including the recent Status of Girls report and all others, were used as a source for the status report that is before you today. Many of our reports contain recommendations on that are based on and in response to the data and research gathered and analyzed during the formation of all of the reports. One such recommendation does encourage the city and county to evaluate the formation of a Children's Services Council for the purposes of a long-term community investment of our children, a majority of which are girls. In addition to these published reports, additional research findings, including national and international studies, have consistently shown an undeniable connection between the well-being of children and the well-being of women, of the women in their lives. With all these things in mind, the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls supports placing the Children's Services Council on the upcoming ballot for Leon County voters to be able to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, Mr. Administrator.
Don Hinkle, to be followed by Lori Dozier.
Mr. Hinkle, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Thank you. Don Hinkle, 3710 Bobbin Mill Road, Tallahassee. I'm going to be very brief. This commission has twice voted 7-0 to push this thing forward. in reliance upon that, many people, a very, very impressive group of leaders in this community have invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of their heart in seeing this thing forward. To deny a hearing seems incomprehensible to me. And we hope we can be back in June, wow you with the merits of this program, which is really, really strong and something this community desperately needs. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next speaker.
Laurie Dozier to be followed by John Hedrick.
Mr. Dozier, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Laurie Dozier, 2101 East Randolph Circle. I was going to have these comments on the 19th, but like others, seemed like we need to move things up a little. So first, I just wanted to say why I'm in the room today. Some people suggested that we're moving a little fast. 13 years ago, I was in my office minding my business, literally minding my own business, when Ken Armstrong and Bill College, Vice President of Capital City Bank, walked into my office. They said they had been studying for over a year the needs in this community. They wanted to move, the United Way wanted to find the root causes of the problems. They studied for a year and they said the root causes were early childhood development, and we needed a sustained way to fund early childhood development initiatives. 6 or 7 months after that, they also asked Loran Osley and my wife Kelly to just take this notion. What are we going to do with this year-long study the United Way did 14 years ago? So to say we're rushing too fast, we haven't looked at this issue, I'm here because the United Way looked at this issue, said this was the single problem we had. For 14 years, I've had confirmed commitments. I've heard, I've read, I've seen absolute truth of this matter. There are people in this room that know the truth of the matter. I just listen to them. I listen to experts. So I just want to say that we're moving too fast is a misnomer. Now, to thank this county, you've been supporting Whole Child Leon for years. We appreciate that tremendously. Somebody asked me at a gathering, what's the difference between Whole Child Leon and Children's Home Society, Children's Services Council? I said the difference between a rowboat and an aircraft carrier. We have 2 people working at Whole Child Leon. They're rowing and rowing and rowing and rowing, and they're just hardly keeping even. We have got to make headway. We've got to make headway. Thank you.
John,
Thanks, sir. Next speaker.
John Hedrick to be followed by Kellyani.
Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner. John Hedrick, 1551 Cristobal Drive, number 1, here in Tallahassee. I'm here today on behalf of the Democratic Party locally because we believe this is a community issue that's in the public interest of everyone to see advanced. We don't feel that anything has changed particularly since the last time we were up here. It's been over 25 years since we tried a Children's Services Council in this community. We've had lots of time to work on these issues. We know the need is there. It sounds like everything is coming together well for a campaign that will properly make the case before the public that this should occur out there. We can help you in other ways too, because one thing we do need to do with the public just generally is explain to them, as has been suggested about this homestead exemption business, there is no free lunch. If you vote to do things like that, you are giving up other services and the like in the community. And hopefully we and others can help you make that choice. But regardless of whatever happens with that, we trust the voters, once they're properly educated about that one, would also do the right thing. This obviously opens the door to a revenue source for these necessary and needed services in the community. To delay another 6 months, another 2 years, or whatever, would not be good in our estimation. And we believe, for the most part, the same people are already starting to talk about, oh, we don't need this now, we shouldn't do this now. They'll be there 6 months from now, and they'll be there 2 years from now. So we've got to face it sooner or later. And we believe the time to face it is now. So our urging is to stay the course, have the hearing on June 19th. Let's schedule this for November. Now let's all go out and get it passed. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Kelly Oddie, to be followed by Eric Miller.
Ms. Oddie, name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. Kelly Oddie, 1075 Alameda Drive. Nice to be here. Thank you all for having this conversation. I just want to urge you to put it on the hearing for July 19th. I know that there's been some other conversation and some things coming out in the Democrat. I was not planning on speaking until July 19th, but there are a couple things that I just want to share with you. This conversation about the Children's Services Council has been happening for as long as I've been in Leon County working in human services. I moved here in 1996. The first effort had already failed prior to that 6 years earlier. I've probably been involved in no less than 20 conversations in 10 different forums about how to get the Children's Services Council moved ahead. When I was the executive director of United Partners for Human Services, we had a conversation about whether or not we had basically the chops to do it. And we decided amongst ourselves that we didn't, that the providers being able to do it weren't going to be able to do it. It was going to have to be a community-led coalition. Since then, every single time we've asked, it's not the politically right time. We know the children need it, but it's not the right time. Politics are off. We don't have the right people on the county commission. We don't have the right people that are in the community that are supporting it. Let's wait. Let's do it later. Let's figure it out. It's been 28 years. There has been an entire generation of people raised in Leon County during that 28 years, living with the same level of poverty, the same level of barriers, and the same level of support that they had 28 years ago. CHSP was supposed to be the answer. United Way had the answer. This is the first time I've seen a citizen-led effort where it's been grassroots and coming from the heart, and it feels bigger than all of us. Because even my nose got pushed out of shape when I realized how far they had gone, and I didn't realize that it had all happened that way. Even my ego got a little twisted. And so I know that people who didn't get to be part of that are feeling a little bit that way, but I think we're making a grave mistake if we interpret our sort of egos being hurt by not being at the planning table with what it really was, which was a completely grassroots, non-political effort to get this done. I'm really impressed with that, and I really hope that you all will think about it. During the 28 years, while we have not been able to figure out the bigger thing, the state really has moved ahead with creating that bigger thing for us. We have a model in front of us and we can follow it. So I'm excited about that. I think we can get it done. I think it'll pass. I just really want to encourage you all to put it out there for hearing. My last point is I'm really alarmed that over the last 20 years since I've been in town, the increasing conversation that we're having about the working poor. We weren't talking about the working poor in 1996. We were talking about the very poorest of the poor. Now we're talking about the fact that we have an entire group of people that are not making it in Leon County and they're working. And so I think we really need to take a look at before the poor keep getting poorer and the people who are working keep getting poorer that we're not addressing something now, right now, while we have a chance to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers, Mr. Administrator?
Yes, sir. We've got Eric Miller to be followed by Sue Dick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric Miller, 2311 Chester Court, Tallahassee, 32312. Well, as my good friend John Moyle has pointed out, that there's significant needs for children, as the report has been provided by the county administrator, significant needs within Leon County. The question is not whether there are needs that are unmet for kids. The question is whether this is the proper vehicle to do it. And whether or not that there is a hearing on June 19th, I suggest today that the commission not accept the staff recommendation to accept the report as is, but require that the report, which is incomplete, provide the information so that the board has a full, complete idea of what will be voted on with the Children's Services Council. On April 18th, I sent to each of you a memorandum outlining 3 different forms and structure for maintaining programs for children. The report is incomplete that you have today because the county already has full authority to implement all of the suggestions and all of the programs necessary to meet, study, and provide the necessary funding to meet children's needs in Florida. The county has the full authority to design necessary staff programs. It has the report is incomplete because creating an independent special district moves control of those programs from this commission to an appointed board of 10 people, 5 of whom are appointed by the governor, along with a person from DCF, which is the sixth appointment from the governor. In other words, it moves it from local control to a gubernatorially appointed board. The tax revenues of the new district are also subject to the TIF increment that would go to the community redevelopment agencies that Commissioner Proctor has spoken at length that he has some issues with. However, the taxes raised by this district would be subject to TIF funding as well. The district will also incur greater administrative costs because some of the press has indicated that the anticipated receipts from the tax that would be imposed at $500,000 would be about $8 million a year. That would require this district to file a full audit every year, just as the county does, of its finances with the state. That's an additional administrative cost that would remove money from providing services to children. So today the board should choose option 3 and direct that to the staff, revise the report to fully discuss the county's authority to study and determine the needs of children, the county's authority to create and staff the office within its own administration to implement the necessary programs, the potential administrative costs of the district, as well as projected impact of TIF funding, not just in the first year, but over the length of the period of time that the district would exist. You don't have to wait for a vote. You can take the recommendations of needs, recommendations of programs, and implement them within the upcoming year's budget. Are there any questions?
Thanks, sir. Next speaker.
Sue Dick, to be followed by Matt Goosey.
Name and address for record, please, ma'am.
Good afternoon, 412 Plantation Road, Sue Dick. I'm here as president of the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. I came before this commission on March 27th to discuss a position statement that our board has taken with regards to this item, and you all have that on record. Again, I just wanted to mention again what that position was, and also to say that we have had a couple of different meetings with John Moyle and to recognize the efforts of this very, very important issue, which we have emphasized before. Our children are our future for our community, and it is imperative that we focus on what the ultimate needs are and make direction and strategies towards accomplishing that. I appreciate John's work on this and the Leadership Council Committee and individuals who have worked very hard in our community to make this the community that we all love and enjoy. The position that the Chamber of Commerce took in summary was to say, while we support and recognize the importance of the children of our community moving forward, that we ask that a community group be pulled together to outline a path moving forward, a plan, as we have done in other models successfully in our community, like Blueprint 2000 and our half-penny sales tax improvements for our schools. Yes, there are other chambers across the state that are taking this on. There are 9, as we've talked about. I specifically spoke directly with the Gainesville Chamber of Commerce last week, and again, we have been working on this since March, trying to do everything we can to fully understand all the ramifications and all the opportunities. Coincidentally, Alachua County not only has this on their ballot, they also have a half-penny sales tax for capital improvements for their schools. And so we do things right in this community, and all that we are asking is that we continue to work together to outline the course for the best success so that we could have passage of whatever the model is that works for our community. Most recently, our leadership met with John and Moni Brown, and one of the recommendations was to say, let's potentially pull together the 5 individuals that carry forward of the 10 as they are identified and start that discussion process of laying out areas that could be discussed and bring other stakeholders to the table that are within the space of our children and the expertise they bring. So wanted to come this afternoon to highlight again that the Chamber of Commerce has taken a position and that we are committed to the success of our children and our community and would like to support whatever this might be moving forward, but understand that a path moving forward with time and outlining what the ultimate opportunities are and goals is most requested. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Administrator.
Matt Goosey, to be followed by the last speaker at this time, Judge Shorstrom.
Name and address for the record, please, sir.
I'm Matt Goosey, 2020 Dumar Drive, Tallahassee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Commissioner Daly, thanks for bringing this forward. Commissioner Deloge, my one-time board chair, thank you for all you've done. As people were ticking off, I heard everything I wanted to say already been said, but I will say this, that I'm the CEO of the Early Learning Coalition. That was not my lifetime dream to get in that position, but I found myself there, not knowing much about early learning and about the impact we can have with kids this age. If you have a concern in society, if there's something, and John laid it out, could be mental health, could be criminal justice, you can trace that all back to kids and investing in kids. I don't know if I've ever voted for a millage increase or a half-cent sales tax on anything, but I hope I get an opportunity to do that in the next ballot, because this is incredibly important. I see these kids every day. There's so much need that we all need as a community to wrap our arms around them and do what we can, not just for the kids, for our economy, for our future workforce, for the criminal justice system, for everything that's important to everybody in this room. This is where we need to put our funds. So please, I hope we continue to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker will be the Honorable Judge Shorstrom, Leon County Courthouse.
Thank you so much, Chairman and Commissioners. It's a privilege to be heard, as always. I'm the Chief Judge of the Second Circuit. I told you I would be here, and here I am. Since the last time I addressed you, I asked the Judicial Ethics Advisory Committee, the Chair, Miguel de la O, one of my old partners and proud graduate of Florida State University, about some guidance about what I could do in this process, and he assured me that the Judicial Ethics Advisory Committee permitted the judges and chief judges of the state to participate. And I want to say to you basically the same thing that I said the last time. The juvenile judge is one of the designated members of the Children's Services Council. I am the juvenile judge in this circuit, the juvenile dependency judge. As the chief judge, I make the assignments, so I can tell you I'm going to be the next juvenile judge. And I stand, and as I told you before, I stand ready to serve. The other thing that I am permitted to do is to describe the need that I see in that role. I left the bench. Judge Marsh was kind enough to come in and sit for me so that I could be in front of you today. Basically, I just felt like it was irresponsible not to be here when this was being considered by you. You exercising your responsibility to decide what the priorities of this community are. I thank you for bringing it to the attention and letting the community be heard. My job is to be the first person that parents see 24 hours after the government has decided that things have gotten so bad that their children can no longer live with them. And the first thing that I tell those parents is dependency court is not get you in trouble court, it's help you out court. My first responsibility under the statute is to put your family back together as quickly as I safely can. The way that I do that is by sentencing the Department of Children and Families to provide services to those families. The need is desperate. What I would hope, and everything that everybody has said, everything that the Chamber has said, and everything that Commissioner Deloge has said is true about this. It is a giving up of control to this Children's Services Council. You've got to decide whether you trust that council or not. And I would just hope that the community is heard, and I appreciate you giving me the chance to be heard today. It's a privilege to be before you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Administrator, any more speakers?
That completes the speaker cards.
Thank you. Move into commission discussion. I have no commissioners in queue to speak. Commissioner Daley?
Move option 1 and prepare for the public hearing on the 19th.
Second. Option 1 has been moved by Commissioner Daley, seconded by Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Deloge?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judge, thanks for your time. I spent a little bit of time in this court last week, and I don't think I could do this job in a year of Sundays. It looked pretty tough, and juggling with kids, trying to figure out what they're ultimately going to have happen to them is a huge responsibility. I can't imagine doing that on a day in, day out basis. And Matt Goosey, my friend, who would have been voted least likely to ever hold this, ex-Navy guy in an organization that's about 99.9% women, and he runs a great shop over there, and you do a great job. And John, thank you for your advocacy for this and your leadership. And it's the kind of thing, as Sue Dick said, makes a difference in our community. It's the kind of thing that makes us a better place. I've got kind of a list of notes to myself here, and I just want to kind of run through these. It was brought up briefly, but we do have something on the ballot this fall, which is the homestead exemption, which we have looked at, feel pretty confident it's probably going to pass. It hits us to the tune of, Mr. Administrator, $7 million effectively, give or take. And so we spent some time talking about how are we going to deal with that. And the decision was made, we could do it two different ways. We could have either just raised taxes to offset it, which would have been irresponsible, or we could have spent the time and just cut services. So what we decided to do was kind of a combination, which is shut down one of the CRAs, kind of move some things around, and raise taxes. So the board here signaled that we will probably, assuming if that passes, raise our taxes, and as was pointed out, probably 0.4 mil or 0.4 mil. So that's on the horizon for us, which as an organization is a pretty big issue. I listened to all the debate tonight or the comments, and I've listened to it over the last couple of months. And what I hear pretty consistently is this is how we're going to pass this. And I heard a lot about the polls. I heard about the PACs. I heard about the leadership team. I even heard about ballot position, about what that was going to impact for us. What I haven't heard a lot of is here's how we're going to spend the money, and here's how we're going to move the meter. I've heard a lot of anecdotal things about, you know, there's a teen crime, there's early intervention, there's childhood poverty, and a lot of different things. I have some fundamental concerns. If you look in the material, the 1,900 pages or whatever we got of material, there's a 2018 Florida Child Well-Being Index, and it's a compilation of a number of measurements, but what it does is it shows how does Leon County rank with our peers around the state, 67 counties. So I'll tell you, Alachua, who is putting this on a ballot, and Alachua is putting on the ballot because they have an existing program that they like, that they're comfortable with, and they want to see that continue. They're number 31. Broward, which has had Children's Services Council, is number 19. Dade County, and I flew down a year ago and met with Dave Lawrence on this topic. I met with him 2 weeks ago again in Orlando. I have a world of respect for him. And if you read his comments in the paper, which was a surprise to me, which was, you know, maybe tapping the brakes is the appropriate thing to do. They're 46, Dade County. Palm Beach is 13, Pinellas is 45, St. Lucie is 40. Leon County is 10, and if you pull back the covers on some of that, one of the things in that is childhood poverty. In other words, we're the 10th best out of 67, meaning 57 counties are worse off than us in this particular measurement. So one of the things, though, you come up with is childhood poverty is an issue. The Children's Services Council has a lot of things it can deal with. I'm not sure childhood poverty is something that we're going to solve with this. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. I have some concerns about, you know, what do we hope to accomplish? How much is it going to cost? And then and only then, I think we should make the decision about how we fund this. I think we have gotten the cart before the horse, and I think we have found a funding source for an area of need in our community, but I don't really, I'm having a hard time with a lack of definition, and as has been pointed out, it gets turned over to an independent body, which, for all intents and purposes, the governor is going to control, whoever that governor is. And although we have some latitude, our only latitude is to put it back out for referendum. We can't arbitrarily make a decision that we don't like what they're doing and we don't think it's the responsible thing and shut them down. Our only alternative would be to go back out to referendum. There's a sunset provision that comes in depending on how we do this. My suggestion would be, and I'd kind of wait here what everybody has to say, would be let's hit the pause button. Let's let the group that's out there, the PAC, continue what they're doing and come back with a defined program. If it's early intervention and you show me here's how we're going to move the meter and here's what we're going to do with the money, I'm all in. And then we determine what the program is. But let's at least get past the homestead exemption piece before we double up, because I have some big problems with us adding 0.4 on our side and another $500,000 from the homestead, the Children's Services Council, and we end up with what effectively is a pretty significant tax increase for this community. So I'll wait for a minute. I'm kind of curious to hear what everybody else has to say. And I think I made my comments in the paper the other day, but thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too echo your comments. I appreciate the work, Mr. Moore, Judge Holstrom, and everyone that spoke in support. And if there's anyone on the dais that has the same inner turmoil that I have felt over this issue, I'd love to have a conversation afterwards. But as a school principal that serves Title I students and families and recognizes the importance of everything that everyone has had to say here today, I see that firsthand, and I see it not only in kindergartners, but I see it in the school where 38% of the students in our zip codes come from homes that are in poverty. I see it in kids that can't read on grade level at third grade, and even with all of that and having that background, that knowledge, and 27 years of working with those families, I have an inner heartburn that worries me about moving forward, and as just simply one steward of taxpayers' money, and recognizing, of course, echoing what other folks have said, the property tax impacts of the Homestead Exemption Amendment and its possible passage. I would want to speak out and say that my position on that would be to wait and see. And that's straight from someone that really realizes there's not really a wait time for these families and these kids, and recognizing that these kids deserve it and need it, but at the same time trying to be a responsible steward of taxpayer dollars. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. I have no more commissioners in queue to speak. Would any other commissioners like to speak? Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am very curious to hear where everyone else is. I too have my typical notes and try to keep this succinct here. But this, I think it's been acknowledged by the comments today, and I think Kelly and if anyone thinks that having parents as constituents is easy, let me say it's not, but my father and I have debated this issue and discussed this issue for years, and I've been a member of the Whole Child Board. So the history from Kelly, from others, is really significant. We have never been here before. And yes, as Commissioner Jackson just said, our primary focus is balancing the needs of being fiscally responsible, providing good services, but doing that in a way that really is transparent and gets everyone engaged. There's been a lot of references to 270 votes, and I celebrate that whatever happens next, because it means that we wanted this conversation. I'm glad we gave it more time, moving it to May, and that it's not 11 o'clock at night right now after a different public hearing. So it has been an exceptional few months. I don't think we've seen this level of conversation. I've listened to lots of different perspectives, read a lot of different perspectives, and I have two big takeaways. One is that there is a diverse group of people who have questions about this. I happened to hear from one of my past teachers today who is retired but said, I want this to happen, I'm not sure it's right now, I need to know more. That was significant. But there's a lot of different motivations. And so I don't want to say that people who are against this just want to kill it. I have heard from a lot of people who just want to do more but want to see this get done at some point. But the second big takeaway for me is not one single person has told me there isn't a need. And I think that comes out in this exceptional report. Mr. County Administrator, I got to say, the staff who worked on this, this is just an incredibly fast turnaround, going through all the details, everything else, 30 different reports plus. Truly appreciate it. So thank you all for doing that. But not one person has said there isn't a need. The questions come down to those who don't want any taxes, sure, may never want to see this happen, but a lot of people with a lot of different questions ranging from is it going to be successful on the ballot, to what's the structure, other things like that. For me, if we have a strong majority, and I'm going to frame it like that, I think it's going to be challenging, an extra challenge, given that we don't have all of the groups coming together right now. We're going to see more debate about the council, should it go to the ballot. So I do think it will be significant for us to have, say, a 5-2 vote on this. That would help it go. And I don't normally say things like that. We don't. But I think a strong majority of this board needs to put it before the voters. And I, too, am concerned about the public hearing. Yes, we've changed our minds in the past about public hearings, but this is a community conversation. And I would be more than willing to have that public hearing, to continue to hear the feedback, and if we can continue to build a coalition, see it on the ballot this year. If this board, if a majority is not ready to do that, then I think we have to harness the power of this conversation. And I want to look at John Moyle, others in the room, everyone who has worked tirelessly for months, yes, for years as well, but the last few months to set up a PAC to get this leadership team in place is exceptional. And again, not one person said there isn't a need. So I'm going to save the last part of this for a second, unless there's no one else in queue to speak, Mr. Chair, because I really would like to hear where everyone is on this. If not now, I think we have to work to have a structured process with everyone at the table, because if we all believe there's a need, then we got to do something right now. We can't wait another day. And that would be the proponent's suggestion, that any time we wait is further harm. We have to start right now to give that direction and see something come back, my opinion, before August on the agenda. So again, I would like to entertain that should we not move forward to the public hearing and beyond. But if we have a strong majority to move forward, I'm content where we are right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have, Commissioner Deloge, you've spoken. Do you mind if I let Commissioner Lanley, Commissioner Proctor speak? Commissioner Lanley?
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I do want to say a huge thanks to you all who have been working on this so long, because you really have elevated a conversation that, as many people have said, we've kind of talked around the edges for many years. Judge Sostrom just said, we've got to decide if we trust the council, and that's probably really at the core of this for me. I've been concerned about, what kind of oversight we will have on that, and I hear both ways. I mean, it could be that the governor's appointees end up running it all, ruling it all, or they're indirectly our appointees, and so, I'm very concerned about oversight. I'm concerned about the homestead exemption cost to us. It would be a huge thing for us to come along later on and have nearly an additional mill of tax increase for our community. So there's a lot to worry about. I really feel grateful for coming forward, for you all coming forward for this. But along the way, we've learned a lot, too. We know that there are other options that our county could take. We could create an MSTU ourselves and oversee it, and it could do many of the same things that you all are interested in doing. We could simply try to come up with the money as a board and just begin adding to programs and listening to a leadership council that you all have decided on. I came in here ready to say, let's just regroup, wait till after the November election on the homestead exemption, and then talk about this in another year. But honestly, today I have felt like I'm going to, I guess, flip on this, because I do think we have got to go ahead with the public hearing. I really was feeling, it was going to be kind of unnecessary. Now I think, honestly, that if we go forward with the public hearing, you all are taking a huge risk, and there is a hell of a lot of work to be done, because I think the community out there is not sure of what this is all about. You've got a great sales job to do. We're going to need to have all the partners come in, the chamber, everyone else who's saying now we need to study it more. It's going to have to escalate. If it goes to the ballot in November, if it fails, then what? I mean, we could come back as a county and we could consider an MSTU, or we could consider other options. So in a way, if I say today, as I'm going to say, okay, let's go to this public hearing, I think, I'm not sure that's a blessing for you all. I think in ways it's more chancy and more risky, and there's a whole lot more work to do. So you put it on the ballot this fall at the tail end of all of these others. It's a risk. It's a risk. And I don't think anybody disagrees the need is there, but I would hate to see it get on the ballot. And with a lot of people in our community still saying, I don't really know who's doing this. I'm not sure what it's all about. I don't really want my taxes to go up for whatever reasons. So I'm going to reluctantly say, let's go to the public hearing. I would go along with you, Commissioner Daley, and wish you luck in making this, making the case, because I think it's very risky.
Commissioner Loge. I'm sorry, Commissioner Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Commissioner Lindley for having the courage to have an open mind and to be persuaded by the concentrated voices that have come today. I note the presence of our Leon County Health Department Director who's here. I note who's not spoken. I note the presence of the Tallahassee Housing Authority Director is here, who has said nothing. I note the presence of the President of the Tallahassee NAACP, who is here today and has not said nothing. If I were to take a gamble, and I think Mrs. Oddie used the word heart, investment of heart, and one of the other speakers talked about heart. I believe that our health director, Tallahassee Housing Authority Director, they would, as a matter of heart, would be leaning toward the direction what Commissioner Lindley has just laid out so well. I'm hopeful that as a matter of process, that our national president of NACO would give the honor of this having unanimous vote to allow the people in the process of democracy as we practice it to go forward unified. Not so much that we've taken a position, but that we support debate. We support the back and forth, the weighing out, the vetting. And Mr. Chairman, this is a procedural, we're not voting a direction, this is a procedure to move it forward. Is that accurate?
Actually, the motion on the floor is just to accept the report, which is what staff recommendation was. It's just simply a report. We were making no decision right now whether or not to put on the ballot. It's just we've already got direction. We've already got direction to take it to public hearings. So this is just accepting a report.
Okay, so as a matter of process tonight, I'm asking your support. I've always supported my national president to support this thing, to give the people of our community to tee this thing up again. It's been 28 years, and I think, Ms. Dick, we heard you, and interestingly enough, one of the previous agenda items, the weigh-in coming from the chamber in those years in 1990 was verbatim, same script, weight. I know that weight can and did break the wagon down. Too much weight will do that. And when the problem has probably spiraled well beyond 1990's look, that we have become, for 3 years, I think, the leading violent crime community in Florida. Harvard came down and said we was the most economic segregated community in the United States. In this chamber, it was announced 2 weeks ago that 32304 is the most illiterate zip code in the state of Florida. And we were not the most violent city in 90. We probably were economically segregated then. But we had no zip code that was considered most illiterate, meaning third grade reading proficiency, as I heard Principal Jackson say, as a measure. And then Mr. Moyle said that prison beds are projected by the levels of proficiency that citizens have in reading at the third grade level. You can project prison need for beds. In ours, in this community right now, the Florida Chamber said that 32304 is our state's most illiterate. So the Chief Judge stood up today, having cleared ethics hurdles to seek permission because he sees the handwriting. When you have economic segregation, you have crime, and you have illiteracy, and you stir it up in that bowl and bounce it around Tallahassee. When the Chief Judge shows up, I'm asking the Chamber that this time, for once, we respect the Chamber, and I like the Chamber because they always want the ball. They want to shoot the last shot. They want to take it. They don't want nobody else, and that's a good sign. And they're good. They don't want, give me the ball. But let's trust the ball in a different group of citizens' hands that maybe we have learned and watched the Chamber well enough that we can emulate, imitate, and I heard that that's a form of flattery. To be flattered that someone else would run the ball in the interest of our children in placing this matter and articulating. So when you mentioned about the plan, John, my question about plan, though I think the largest question is about operations. Others may plan who you intended to plan to put on the board. There's so many levels of plan. My ask about the plan was, is you gonna get a team to fight for the measure? If we put it on the ballot, what is the plan to win the battle? That's what I wanted to know. And I think that you peeled back the onion and gave us layers. $40,000 has been raised to date. That sounds like serious business to me. I mean, it's not Daley's kind of money that he raises in a month. But I admire him. I hope some of it rubs off on me. But he told us that we have grown, who has bought in, who are some of the bigs. And in 2006, what makes me feel good this evening is that in 2006, when we pushed the half-cent sales tax forward, we were like the underdog. Herb, you remember? The county commission was trying to say, and we got beat up, and all the bigs had ganged up, and it was hostile coming out the blocks. But look at the draftees in the movement. We got some first-round draft choices, some blue chippers on this side. As we lift this forward, this is a pretty impressive team for beginners. And the difference between tonight and 2006 is that the other team was way taller than us, and their pockets were much deeper than what we were going to put in, and they were very influential, and it carried sway. I have a sense that tonight, hearts may well be different. And when hearts have been transformed, minds will follow. And it's very interesting, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that people often don't always remember the cognitive nature of what they remember, and from the head up, you forget stuff. But people seldom forget the things that they feel. You just don't lose touch with what you feel. And if this is a movement of heart with soul, and we're feeling it, and all of the reports of this right here, just if you don't, you make sure some ladies are not in the room or something. You got to read this by yourself because it pulls on your heartstrings. to know that this is children in our community. The time is right. I mean, it's serious. Can I trust who Mr. Moyle lifted up as I can? I will. I trusted somebody to fly a plane for me this morning. I ain't know him. I hope he didn't come out of 32304. I want to correct that. But the chief judge is here who's over juvenile court, and his presence each time this has come forward, he's on the front line. He's seeing a lot. And I would be negligent to not hear the chief judge of our circuit and all of the other citizens whose hearts seemingly are being led, persuaded by data that we can do better. So I'm very proud, and I'm asking Mr. Loja, to walk with us. We need you as a process to allow for our citizens to come in here and, we do it all the time, blow us away, say we're behind it, don't put it on the ballot, wait to hear what they want to do. That was the ask tonight. And I know that we're all big enough to hear from our citizens. We do it every day. And in a formal way, communities come together as a nucleus to say that they want a chance to speak to us. So then final, Mr. Chairman, I want to make clear that it's not bragging when it's true. But when the District 1 County Commissioner has taken a position on ballot measures, the South Side and Urban Core has never not followed their commissioner and what he has called for. And if this goes to the ballot, I will be supporting our next mayor's initiative in launching this. And I hope he's finished his business by August 28th, because I hope that I finish mine too, that I can give full attention. And Commissioner Jackson, got to put some legwork in this, got to pass this. The final observation about the Tallahassee Chamber, if they tell you to wait, that's their kindest way of telling you we against it. And one of the things you have to be prepared for, because it's true. I wouldn't say this in front of Judge Shorstrom, who demands that you tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If the chamber is against you, they're going to fight you like cats fight dogs. So you got to be prepared for the war, for the battle that's going to come. That's who they are. That's what they do. So I'm fighting as hard as I can. And we're going to have all of the South Side, and I hope the West Side, and everybody else side to make this thing. We got to win this right here for the children. Kelly was right. 28 years we waited. Really, y'all? 28 years. And I think that the timing is perfect. So I yield the floor, Mr. Chairman, and hope that we have a unanimous vote tonight. And if over a month period of time that we have a change of heart and we just can't see this go to the ballot, notwithstanding the other measures that will be on it, then we'll vote our conscience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowe's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Proctor, Commissioner Proctor, for all your kind words. This is a funding source. It's not the only funding source. And frankly, we could literally almost on the fly designate this amount of money in our budget for these type of programs. Do the math. If and when this gets up and going, average overhead from what I've been told is about 10%. They typically don't offer direct services, so that of $8 million, that's $800,000 that's never going to see the light of day. And then there's about 15 to 17%, what I understand, for the typical United Way agency or those type agencies, which they'll get the money next. That's a 25 cents on the dollar that will never see the light of day. I would like very much to delay the hearing, delay this putting on a ballot, and if we feel if the need is, as Commissioner Dozier pointed out, I think everybody agrees there's a need. Let's run it internally, and if there's a real strong sentiment to that, show us the programs, show us what we're going to do, and let's run it through our budget. So for that point, I can't really support this going forward, and I got asked to do the job, not to hand it off, so I really struggle with a little bit just asking the public to vote on these things. So I just don't think it's ready for prime time. Thanks.
Commissioner Dozier's in the queue to speak. Commissioner Daly, and then I'll make some comments myself. You hear my comments? Good. So, here's where I am. I thought long and hard about it. This would be a half a meal that we would have to contemplate, or that the Children's Services Council will contemplate putting on a property tax bill. In the same time, we will put about 0.4, which makes a 0.9 increase that we're looking at. I want to frame it for everybody that's out there. This is not anything light that we're trying to consider. I've heard a couple people here say something that I think is we have to take consideration and be fair about. That thing is this. Tonight was about accepting an item to push this to a public hearing. It wasn't about accepting, it wasn't about whether or not we actually put it on the ballot. But I cannot be disingenuous and tell you right now, as I sit right here on this dais, that it doesn't give me discomfort to know that I am putting my commission in a place where in 2020, more than likely, we have to look at raising 0.4 mills or cutting essential services that people value in our community, along with also having a board, our council, look at putting 0.5 up. It makes me very uncomfortable. But tonight, for the purposes of tonight, and for the purposes of what I've heard here today, I can be okay with pushing it to public hearing. But I'm not convinced. As I sit here today, I wonder what kind of effort can we put together? Why isn't an effort put together behind this the same type of effort that was put together for our sales tax that our community had to vote on? I think people need to be just as informed. Yes, it's been 28 years, but is everybody clear on exactly what's going to happen with this money, and exactly where it's going and who's going to be in charge of it and all that? Because there's still a lot of questions out there. I spoke to UPHS a couple weeks ago, and I asked the question of those folks in that room about the Children's Services Council. Half the room had no idea what I was talking about. Half the room of people who provide human services in Leon County had no idea what I was talking about. There were some. There was a report, I think after I spoke, I think that Courtney Atkins and Hochschild gave a little talk or a forum about what it actually means. I wasn't there for that, so I don't know how it went. But what makes me most nervous, and I think this commission really, we got to think about this. In that same year that the council would levy that property tax, we would be looking at a $7 million decrease in our budget if Homestead passes, of which we've already said that we would increase our millage by 0.4 mills. What would make me more comfortable, but we have not, I don't think anybody else here is willing to do it right now, is for us to delay. I'm not saying not do it. I'm not saying put it away forever. As a matter of fact, I will take this on myself to make sure that we're pushing it forward if we decided to delay, to see what happens with the homestead exemption. I mean, 0.9 mills. And from what I understand, I think the Children's Services Council was talking about not even levying the whole half mil. I think they said maybe 0.25. But even if they impose 0.25, that's 0.65 mills. When Mr. County Administrator, because I hadn't been here all my life, but has it ever been contemplated 0.65 mills in one budget? You don't have to answer that question. I think I already know the answer. I don't think it's ever been contemplated. And we as policymakers that sit on this board that also look at the budget every year, have to make decisions on that budget, have to take that into consideration. If we're not going to do it, where are we going to cut?
Who remembers when we sat here and we looked at the things that the county administrator said we would have to cut? It was library services that which help our young people. There were other things there was CHSP, which helps our young people, which helps our human services. These were things that we would have to look at cutting in order just to make our budget work. It makes me nervous. And look, this Children's Services Council is going to help people who grew up just like me, who look just like me. That's where I'm at right now. I desperately want to help them. But at the same time, I got to look at the budget that we're looking at in the future. We talked about timing a lot. And I don't know about all those other times, what was happening and why we didn't take it up. But I can guarantee you one thing. All those other times, this board, or the board that was sitting in these seats, was not looking at a $7 million potential hole from a homestead exemption that they would have to fill. I want somebody to tell me how we're going to do both. Do we not raise the whole four mills? Do we cut some more into our budget? I want to feel comfortable with the fact of what are we going to do if homestead passes and this passes on this ballot. How are we going to balance our budget that we're mandated to do by the state government? But for the purposes tonight, I'm fine. I'll go to public hearing. But as a policymaker that sits on this board that's going to have to look at this budget every single year until I'm no longer on this board, it makes me a little nervous. Because I know that if I owned a home and somebody gave me an extra homestead exemption, I'm going to vote for it. And I would actually think that the majority of Leon County citizens would too. So I'm not guaranteed, but I feel 80% sure that it's going to pass. So, Commissioner Daley, that's where I am. I have Commissioner Deloge, Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Proctor, Commissioner Lindley in queue to speak. Commissioner Deloge, you have the floor. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm heartened by what I heard in the last few minutes, so thank you all. I think we do have a strong majority, as I indicated before. I think we need to go to the public hearing. I appreciate all the comments, both the caution, but also the desire to hear more from the public. So I'm excited by that. Commissioner Lindley, I'm going to pick on one thing you said, though. We often agree, but I do think this is a we and not a you. I think this is a partnership. So I wanted to elevate that because, yes, anytime we move forward with something on the ballot that we also may support, it would be in line, should we do this in June, with numerous other policies and initiatives we have, from libraries to funding the Sheriff's Department to economic development, workforce issues, all these things tie together. We're going to pay for a lot of these things later on when people are in the criminal justice system if we're not getting ahead of it. This is a long-term benefit for our community. This is why I've been sold on Children's Services Council and doing more for those programs. So this does dovetail, but we, as an elected body, we can't, in a county government, advocate for it in the same way that a citizens group can. This is a balance, and it has to have good support from the community, and it has to have education, and we have to build a coalition. We have seen things when they fail because we don't have that coalition. We've seen things succeed when they do. So I am excited. I do think this is a we, that we've got another month, potentially, if the vote is positive here, to continue that dialogue. But I do think that Commissioner Lindley, Commissioner Maddox, others, you raise good points. Commissioner Deloge, I didn't mean to leave you out there, and Commissioner Jackson, about the caution here. And I will say my one area of concern, going back to February, and I didn't mean to single my father out, but we have not debated the need for this for years. We have debated the how you get it done part. That's the only debate in my mind, is how do we create more resources to address these needs that will benefit our entire community. So for me, I think there is an opportunity in the next month to continue this dialogue. We've never been this far into it. But I did neglect to say one thing before, which, thank you, John, for mentioning it, the discussion about the August primary versus the general election. I just want to be very clear tonight, since we're all being very transparent in where we are on this, and I think this is exactly what makes us a great county, is we can have this discussion and dialogue about it. August is very problematic to me. Yes, we have nonpartisan races in this community, and for all the reasons you articulated, we probably will have a good turnout. But I think in general, something like this, and I would say the same thing about the blueprint infrastructure sales tax or the county schools tax or anything like that, I have not heard persuasive arguments to put it on the August ballot, although I share the concerns about the November ballot because of constitutional revision. So it does make the job harder this year, quite frankly. And again, my concern has always been in the how do we get this done to increase these resources for these needs that we have over 30 reports and 1,000 pages to dig into. So I wanted to chime in on the concern area, but that is my one focus. I look forward to seeing what the community dialogue is in the next, and hearing from everyone in the next month. Should we go to the public hearing? And the last thing I will say is, again, if we go into that public hearing, and should the board choose not to put this on the ballot, I won't get into this piece in too much detail, but we do have an item coming up or a note in the next agenda item on the Alice report about a needs assessment and a consultant for the CHSP program in general. And I think that provides an opportunity. That's been long needed, and we've got data coming in. Whether we go to ballot this year or in the future, that is going to be exceptionally helpful for us. So I appreciate the county administrator bringing that forward. And I just wanted to leave it there, that we do have some other things working that I think will help us as well. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I'll be on point. A couple things. One, I just want to emphasize that I feel a commitment to go to public hearing now, and that's what you all have brought to me today, that we earlier had pledged, or, and put a public notice out that we were going to have a public hearing. So that's it. But I want to caution again, I guess, that at that public hearing, we're not going to hear just from this group in the room, and we are going to hear people who have a lot of concerns that Commissioner Deloge and I and Commissioner Jackson, with his heartburn, have felt. And it's going to extend the heartburn, I think, for everybody to some extent, because there are real concerns about the taxes, as you have pointed out. But I think, honestly, I think our chamber has been a good partner, and I think there is sincerity in trying to help us nail this down. So I don't want them to be painted as the against. You have been a solid partner in a lot of ways, and I appreciate that. And we need that. We need that sensibility as well. So I'm going forward with the public hearing, and with a lot of cautionary notes. That's all I want to emphasize today.
Commissioner Proctor.
Chairman, sometimes we separate what we do in terms of our bricks and mortar, and other times we have the opportunity to do something that enhances flesh and blood. And there's this song that they sing at the church, "Be not dismayed, whatever betide, God will take care of you." And there's this story about this man named Joseph, who was able to tell this man who was called Pharaoh what to do in time of famine. And our county has been gifted to have these Josephs named Vince Long and Alan Rosenwag. And they have, you'd be surprised, my confidence is resolute in them. And I guess after 22 years of sitting on this dais, I have seen their brilliance again and again. I hate to say this in public, but I wouldn't lie on them. They're just plain brilliant. They made for stuff like this. They get it done. I've never seen them shoot themselves in the foot. I ain't never seen them drop the ball or fumble. We have, there's another statement they say, I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their seed begging bread. They have never left this county begging bread, period. I don't know if Allen prays harder than Vince, or Vince outprays Allen, how they come up with these solutions. I don't know. But God has anointed these leaders. And I have confidence that this is nothing too big for God and Rosenwag and Vince. They just get it done. And I don't mean to, like that, but I don't mean it like that, but it's the truth. We have a brilliant staff. And the intellectual capital captured in Leon County exceeds most, period. It exceeds the state. Pound for pound, measure for measure, we ain't second to nobody with what we got. Believe in it. It's going to work. We have a need, and children who look like you, grew up like you, they want to know where you stand. And it was written somewhere that the last question that we're going to hear, exit poll, when I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was naked, did you clothe me? When I was thirsty, did you give me drink? The last question. We have an opportunity to do some good on that question with all of these needs that have been captured and presented to us again and again. We're going to let Allen and Vince figure out what to do. And if they have us looking bad, we're going to get somebody who can do it. When they can't run the ball and get first downs and keep us looking good, we will find someone who will. But thus far, we've never had to change direction. I mean that. I'm serious about that. Just to call a roll briefly, when you have a district commissioner that don't want Mahan Drive widened, when the district commissioner votes against the widening, and your staff is working to make the introductory artery into the state's capital off of I-10 presentable, a place that looks like, civilization lives there. We got that done. We got Falls Chase done. We've gotten Thomasville Road done. Crawfordville Road done. We went through the homestead exemption thing that was on the ballot, and we took a $25,000 hit for every household some years ago. They came up with 3 or 4 models because they're strategists. They just get it done. So I have seen lean years come and lean times. And when you look at when property values dive, that right there was a crisis moment. But Vince did not let us down, honest. I mean, really. And I'm very proud of that. Now, I hit him side the head a little bit about that report. And I don't know if they're just lazy or don't care. But the reason I talk about that economic, that little report, OEV, is because I know they got the talent to do better. I mean, if you know somebody dumb and can't get it done, why would you challenge them? But you do when you know they have the capacity. They may not have the will, but they do have the capacity. And I know that we have a great team. And for this cause, God is not going to let us try to help poor children and then let our county capsize for that kind of effort. We may not see it right now. There'll be a ram in the bush, and something great, unique will come forward. But Leon County is not going to dissolve. We've been here since. That's how long we've been here. And John Proctor was here. We come through. George Proctor was here. We come through. Antonio Proctor was here to talk to the original Seminoles and try to settle this thing down. And for our federal government, it come through. You got a Proctor here on this day, so we're going to come through. We've been doing it for a long time for Leon County, and I ain't going nowhere. So Have faith, have heart. Let's help the children change the dynamic, change the most crime-riddled, change the most illiterate. Let's make these people healthy. Let's do it. The chance is ours. That's how I feel. We're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're going to do it.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Prater. I got to be very clear about something, and I hate doing this, but in this moment, I feel like I have to. We did take a vote last year, budget time, said we would deal with our homestead exemption by raising our millage. I will not do both. I will not raise 0.5 mills by a Children's Services Council or even 0.25 and then turn around and then also go and do 0.4 in our budget. So whatever they raise, it goes against, for me, it goes against what we do. So they raise 0.25, I'm only willing to raise 0.15. Because at the end of the day, I do not want, because at the end of the day, when we took that up, this wasn't a consideration, but now it is. And I don't think we can overburden our folks with our arch constituents with a 0.9 increase, anything of that nature, without taking consideration what it might do to their tax bill. So that's where I am. I want to be on record saying I can't do both. But on the flip side of that, Commissioner Prater, I do have faith in our staff. And to be honest with you, I do see the need. There's a need there. There's an immense need there. You got 2 full books there. Show everybody. I mean, you got 2 full books there of need. So that is there. But at the same time, we have to be sensitive to what it does to the property tax bill. So,
But Chairman, could I challenge you just for a moment, if you would, if you're open to it? And that is simply to compartmentalize that you're taking on conceptually the 0.909. That ain't what we did. The part that we will accept as responsibility is whatever the people that we got to trust, how much on that credit card they're going to take. Will it be 2, 5, 3, 4, all the way to 5? We're trusting them, and we know that we've given them a limit to 5. You trust your daughter with your credit card.
I understand.
But what the state comes up with on that ballot initiative, dang what we did. We don't take responsibility for what was imposed on us, and everybody across the state got it. So the way I see it, what I'm responsible for is my trust with the group of folk who got that 0.5 up to that. But what the state of Florida come up with, they so whack they could come up with anything. But we didn't do that to the people of Leon County. The state did it to that.
I understand.
Compartmentalize the responsibility.
I understand it completely, and the state oftentimes puts us in position with unfunded mandates and things like that. We have to make hard decisions. But this is probably the biggest unfunded mandate we've ever seen in the form of $7 million coming down from the state. And so I'm me for one. I got to be sensitive to what it's going to do to the tax bill. I can't do both. But I do understand the need, like I said. And Commissioner Doge, you said something a second ago. You said there's $8 million that we're talking about. We can very well specify $8 million out of our budget to go towards this thing. If you want to do it, let's do that. But I tell you what, I mean, at the end of the day, I just can't do both. I can't do both. I have no more commissioners in queue to speak.
Mr. Chairman, on point what you're just saying, being creative, the $23 million that will be there when we withdraw from the CRA, what happens to that $23 million? Is that a possible source in which we could fund this?
Mr. Administrator?
It's already contemplated. Even taking into consideration the $23 million, the balance needed to balance your budget after a successful homestead exemption would equate to the 0.4 mils.
So it washes out even?
Yes. Okay. Motion on the floor is accept staff recommendation. I have no more commissioners in queue to speak. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. Motion carries 6-1. We'll move on now to item number 24.
Commissioners, this item seeks your ratifications of actions taken at the May 8th United Way of Florida's Alice Report Workshop. Commissioners, this item is, I know, very recent in your all's memory. However, we are very happy to answer any questions you might have. I have no speakers on this item.
Commissioner Prater.
Chairman, I wanted to thank you for affording us to receive this report and for this commission. The optics that were presented in this report have actually have moved the indexes of my thought and has set new parameters for my thinking and seeing and our budgeting processes. And, you know, when information moves the, you know, reshifts the furniture of your mind, your interior mind, that's major. So I think that we all have been enriched significantly. Our community, though somewhat alarmed, but yet the information appears to be accurate in stating our case. And I'm very, very, very highly appreciative for this commission having this report to come to us, and we gnawed on this bone and gnawed on this bone, and that we're receiving it as a part of our record. You're not Ms. Voss, are you? Okay. I was about to say Ms. Voss.
Ms. Milan? That's Ms. Milan, Commissioner Proctor.
Okay, Ms. Milan, for the record, I make this motion that we receive the report that's been presented to the County Commission tonight, recognizes the Alice report.
Motion been made by Commissioner Proctor to accept, yes, staff recommendation to accept the Alice report, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Commissioner Jackson out of chambers. Matter of fact, make it 7-0. He whispered in my ear that he's going to accept it as well. Right before he said he had to go potty. So item passes 7-0. We'll move on now to item number 25. He did.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, at your December 12th meeting, staff proposed and the board approved pursuing the development of a county-wide or community-wide climate action plan through a compact model whereby participating organizations commit to work together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and collaborate on other sustainability initiatives. Commissioners, this agenda item presents to the board for your approval the county's participation in the proposed Capital Area Sustainability Compact. Additionally, in support of this compact, this item seeks authorization to conduct a new greenhouse gas inventory of county operations to update the county's sustainability action plan for county operations. Commissioners, as we proceed with implementing the compact and updating the county's internal action plan, staff will provide regular updates to the board as part of our annual sustainability report agenda item. And like the current year where staff recommended the additional solar on a number of county facilities, any new actions that might have a fiscal impact will be brought to the board for your consideration during future annual budget development processes. Commissioners, if the board would like, Maggie Terrio is here, prepared to present or provide a brief presentation to you, or is happy to simply answer any questions that you might have. With that, staff is recommending options 1, 2, and 3, and we do have a few speaker cards on this item.
Mr. Administrator, who are those speakers?
I'd like to start with the speakers. The first speaker is Douglas Miller.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask through you if Commissioner Dozier would comment. I am curious about her comments on this measure, if she's willing to. I don't know.
Would you like to hold your comments to after?
Yeah, afterwards.
Comment.
But I just would love
He's
to hear.
in queue, but you want to hold it to after.
Yes, sir. I would.
On this issue, I respect Commissioner Dozier. She sees things I don't see.
Yes, sir.
Stuff like this.
Thank you.
Name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Douglas Miller, and my address is 3034 O'Brien Drive, Tallahassee, Florida, 32309. Okay. All right. Well, a few quick comments. First, I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I am coming as the campaign director of Rethink Energy Florida. Many of you know our work in the community, educating and engaging Leon County residents on issues of energy and sustainability. So I'm here tonight first to say that we're excited and want to applaud the efforts of the County Commission as well as Sustainable Tallahassee to bring private, nonprofit, and public entities together for this action plan. Understandably, many members of our own base, as well as organizations that we work closely with, some of whom are here tonight, are excited to see the county lead in this manner and to take part in this plan. And I should say, we're speaking just for Rethink Energy. I'm speaking just for Rethink Energy. And we're excited about it because we really believe in equity and participation. We really think that we get the best and the most just result when low-income people, communities of color, and really the diversity that makes Tallahassee and Leon County great are all alongside each other and at the table. Relatedly, we also applaud the county for considering and approving the Sierra Club Pledge supporting 100% clean and renewable energy. That's because, and this was, goes to the founding of our organization, we really believe that every moment is dire for the climate and for our community. And so we're excited that we have leaders locally who are stepping up. Sorry, I lost my place. Okay. So, Rethink Energy Florida really believes the Sustainability Compact and the Sierra Club Pledge are crucial first steps, and we believe that both should be followed through with this evening. That said, we do offer 2 recommendations, which we believe are in the spirit of equity and sustainability, and which we do believe will benefit the community as a whole. First, we request that the County Commission provide clear direction to staff to produce an inclusive plan, either as part of the compact or separately from the compact, to clarify transparency and community involvement in the process of the compact. Such a plan would function as an explanation of the plan's scope and the process so that we can have inclusive community involvement. Secondly, we request that the County Commission provide clear direction to staff to produce an inclusive overall plan, again, either as part of the compact or separately, to help transition Tallahassee and Leon County to 100% net clean renewable energy with equity. We hope you accept our recommendations, as we believe that right now is the time before the compact is officially voted on to make sure that equity is front and center. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
The next speaker is John Hedrick, to be followed by Bart Bibler.
Mr. Hedrick, busy today. Name and address for the record, please, sir. Hey, I told you voted in favor of
I am indeed, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you again, also the commissioners. 1551 Cristobal Drive, number 1, Tallahassee, Florida. I'm going to parse what I've got here. The first thing I'm going to say is on behalf of the party, we need to see in the plan that's adopted a 2035 planning horizon. That is not in this document yet. We think it's very important that get in the document so we know where we're aiming to get the 100% renewable energy by. Now, the rest of what I'm going to say is, because this came up so quickly, is on behalf of the Leon County Democratic Environmental Caucus. We feel it's very important that on a subject of this nature, to make sure we do it right, that we do staff direction, we delay consideration of this item for no more than 1 month while we adopt various other remedies in this. One of the remedies needs to take care of the fact there was inadequate notice. A lot of us only saw this 6 days ago when it got published, and we've been having to scramble with a lot of people ever since to get a lot of things done with this. We feel there's a need for much greater community involvement, input, and transparency. We've got a list, along with other people, of at least 15 different organizations and players who we don't believe are currently involved in this that need to be involved, and perhaps even more than that need to be involved in this. Frankly, we feel, speaking of time deadlines, we feel the planning process that we're adopting in all this, it needs to be in place by no later than the end of this year, 2018, and the actual plan that would create the 100% renewable energy goal for the community, that needs to be done no later than next year, 2019. Of course, I've already mentioned about the 2035. And finally, we feel that close coordination, if not actually joint drafting of the plan or plans with the city, needs to happen. So we're all moving in the same directions and rowing in the same way, if at all possible. Those are the things we feel is important. We do feel this is an important issue that needs to be moved on. We think a month's time to get things right would be time well spent. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, sir. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Bart Bibler, to be followed by Steve Beam.
Mr. Bibler, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hi, I'm Bart Bibler. I live at 3673 Mossy Creek Lane here in Tallahassee. I've been a member of the Sustainable Tallahassee Renewable Energy Advocacy Committee for several years, and I've been urging both the city and the county commission to develop a clean energy plan, community clean energy plan. And although I'm generally supportive of this first step, it is not yet ready for your approval. and it is not a community clean action plan. Specifically, the fiscal impact shows no funding authorization for Sustainable Tallahassee, yet Sustainable Tallahassee is to be responsible for all administrative tasks, reports, and research as requested by the compact. The narrative about collaboration with community groups and citizens gets one sentence, that this will occur through smaller working groups coordinated by Sustainable Tallahassee. As I've encouraged from the initial discussions of a community clean energy plan, there should be public workshops with professional facilitators and a consultant with experience in the development of a community clean energy plan. These funds should be authorized by you and not await authorization from next year's commission. Though the draft compact has a signature block for the city, I understand that the city attendee was their new resiliency officer. I urge that this signature be that of the city commission chair or the acting city manager, as this must include participation by multiple divisions of the city, including the city electric and the revenue divisions. So I have two asks. Number one is that you reschedule this update on the Community Clean Energy Plan in June, subsequent to discussions with clean energy advocates, another meeting with the potential compact members, and that you authorize the funding for Sustainable Tallahassee and other necessary consultants. And two, that you direct the county administrator to meet with the acting city manager and request a joint city-county workshop. Thank you for your consideration.
Any other speakers?
We've got one final speaker, Steve Bean. I'm sorry, there are two. Steve Bean to be followed by Jim Davis.
State your name and address.
Steve Bean, 1101 Pine Street. I'm a member of the Democratic Environmental Caucus, but I'm really talking for myself here. Last year, the Environmental Caucus, along with Rethink Energy and a bunch of other organizations, went to the Tallahassee City Commission, and we asked them to set a goal of 2035, the year 2035, to get our community totally off fossil fuels, to get to 100% clean renewable energy, as had been called for by the U.S. Conference of Mayors. 100% clean renewable energy, that means all electricity generated by solar or other clean forms of energy. It means no more gas cars. It's a big change if we can do it. The City Commission directed staff to come up with a plan to accomplish what we were asking. And this month, just a week or two ago, the city hired a consultant to essentially help them come up with a process for planning to get to 100% clean renewable energy by 2035. I have been focused on what the city can do in this area, and I hadn't really been paying attention to what the county was doing. So when I read the agenda item, this agenda item for tonight, I was impressed. I'm pleased that the County Commission takes climate change seriously, and I'm especially impressed that you take the responsibility to do something about it seriously. I read the list of organizations that will be in the Sustainability Compact, and it was pretty obvious why they're there. These are big power users. These are big employers. They can do a lot to help us fight climate change. I mean, even if just they all got most of their employees, when they replace their cars to get electric cars, that alone would be a big step. So I like that they're there and that they're into this, and it seems good. I have two requests. I think that this process will work best if the county works closely with the city. I know that's not always easy to do, but I urge you to try. I think we'll get further with both governments working together. And I share the view that's been said by some others that we want to see the process inclusive. Those groups that are in the compact are important, but other groups are important too, especially advocates for the disadvantaged. Everyone says the transition to clean energy is going to create a lot of jobs. This is a chance to use that change to fight poverty and improve things for the not so well off, and I would urge you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. One more speaker?
Final speaker card, Jim Davis.
Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Jim Davis, 1733 Oak Plank Road in Newport.
Yes, sir.
I'm the executive director of Sustainable Tallahassee. I've been the executive director 3.5 years after previously a CPA, so my practice and both my efforts in the past have been in working with the elderly. I'm a member of the Senior Center Board. I'm glad that recognized today. But, you know, when I took over this job 3.5 years ago, I went back to FSU, took my first class in 30 years, you know, and learned a lot about the class in sustainability, learned a lot about sustainability, have become very compassionate about sustainability. Working with Sustainable Tallahassee, I've become very compassionate. I think, you know, when we look at what we're doing with this compact, you know, to me it's very important as a community that we look at sustainability as a whole, that we don't look at only one issue of it. We need to look at the whole sustainability efforts. And that's what I think this compact does. It looks at the whole sustainability efforts. You know, what I've seen over my 3.5 years is to get people to do sustainability efforts in organizations or in our homes, you have to have a champion. And I think this is what we're asking by these organizations, to be the champions to start this process. And so we're asking these organizations to come together, to work together, develop a sustainability plan, take that on to their workers, their employees, take it out into the environment, maybe their vendors, to be those champions. And when you do that, then all of a sudden you develop, we want to be all-inclusive. We want other organizations to be involved. We hope this group will help mentor other organizations to be part of the whole Sustainability Compact. So we don't see like we're working in a silo. We want to involve all organizations in this process. And again, we think as being champions of the process of sustainability in this community, this is a great start on that. And I really think you as a board can be the champion for this compact by adopting and participation in the compact. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Proctor, as well as the rest of us, like to hear your comments on this.
I did.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate that, Commissioner Proctor, but I will say I am proud of this board and proud of our entire county family for doing such an incredible job on sustainability since 2007, which I think is the first year we hired our first sustainability coordinator. At that time, Sustainable Tallahassee was called Greenovation. It was one of the teams coming out of the first KCCI group, and amazed that it's 11 years later. And I will also add that this idea of a joint sustainability plan with the city was raised before I joined this commission, before I ran for office, and was in the works, but there were some challenges at that point. So this has been a long time coming, and I am incredibly excited. My read of compacts in other communities, I've talked to people, House Representative Kristen Jacobs and others who have worked on these. The success comes, and I think Jim just pointed to this, when you get the large stakeholders involved who agree to sit down at the table. And I have been cautioned in the past not to flesh out every single detail, as you all know I like to do, before we get to, I'm knowing it, before we get to a compact that, for the first time, these organizations will be sitting together with our leadership quarterly. So I want to say that first. I think this is exceptional, and I think Jim and I have talked before, and he champions our county staff who has been out, Tessa, others who have been out with him, making contact with these other organizations. So I do think for the compact, this is a fantastic start. It is noted that it will evolve and will change in the future. And I think another really critical point, and Jen, you just mentioned this is a sustainability compact, much, much larger than just the clean energy issue and meeting that goal, whether it be 2035 with the city or something else. This is really a much more holistic approach and looking from, let's say one of my favorite programs, Chuck It for Charity over at FSU, where they clean out the dorms and they've donated hundreds of thousands of pounds in recent years. Guardian ad litem students get to go in and pick their stuff first instead of it going to the landfill. This is holistic. So that part I am thrilled with. I got a couple of thoughts on that, and I would love to hear whether Mr. County Administrator, if we want answers now or if an implementation plan is coming back to us in the future. I do think there is a space here for larger businesses. I would love to see some other business representation and sign on to the compact, large or small business. I think there's a lot of businesses that are already doing a lot or would commit to this, and I think getting some names outside of public institutions and the chamber, which is good start, but to get some actual commitment by businesses will really help. And I do think there's a role to draw on the expertise, which is why I'm thrilled Sustainable Tallahassee is working with us. We have a lot of expertise, but others as well, to look at those other issues, to really drive this down to the homeowner level, to low income, to any income level who doesn't know quite why sustainability is good for their bottom line. So I would love, Mr. County Administrator, just again, whether you want to bring back those other aspects in the near future. I think it would be good to have a dialogue about the next steps. Or if you have, if your staff has answers for them now, we can dig into it now. I'm really fine either way on the compact. So that's my comments on the compact. The second piece, though, and I think a lot of the comments, and I will say, we thought we'd have more dialogue about the 2035 or others. I am very excited that Leon County was the first to sign, the first county to sign the Mayor's Compact. Sierra Club, now we have a method for counties to sign, and the county administrator has said that they'll be updating their website, so it's not just the mayors and the cities, but we will also have a section for counties, which is really great. Leon is the first in the nation to do this. But I do think you all have raised good points about the dialogue with the city on the energy component, talking about a date. And so I really see this as two separate things. I don't want to hold up the compact and not moving that forward. This is exceptional. Yes, there's more to come. This is a first step. But on the energy piece, I'm going to get just down to the basics here. City utilities has to be the biggest player in the room with that. It has been challenging at times to work with the city. I'm hopeful that that gets better. This year, I honestly don't know where the lay of the land is. So yes, I would love for our county administrator to reach out to city manager and have a dialogue. We're doing this, they're on board, talk about what their plan is, talk about the consultant, and bring that back for more dialogue on the energy component. I think, John, to your point and others, I think we do have to be on the city's timeline with that, quite frankly. But I know I went on a little bit with this, but this is a complicated issue, and I don't want to conflate these two pieces. I do think the energy piece needs, the clean energy commitment needs some more dialogue. There's no date in the Mayors for 100 commitment that we've signed, but I want to move forward with the compact with some additional information as the implementation of that goes forward. So, Mr. Chair, I hope that helps Commissioner Proctor and others. With that, and I'll pause for a second. Ms. County Administrator, do you plan to bring back more in the future on the implementation of this, or are you prepared to answer any of those questions right now about larger businesses or any?
We are prepared to answer questions you have. Obviously, I think as we noted in the item, we'll be bringing you back anything that has budget implications, obviously through future budget discussion items, but we're very happy to answer any questions you have now relative to the compact. And as we mentioned in the item, our working group are doing very much what we're doing at this point in time, which is running it up the flagpoles to boards of directors and getting sign off and that sort of things and continuing to work together. We can't say definitively at this point who the signees are, or ultimately will they be, if they will be executed at their board levels, but so far at a staff level, there's been a lot of commitment.
Okay, well, I really appreciate that comment because I think that was a very valid point. We need the principals to sign on to this, to have any weight. I do think the city commission, mayor, I hope that they join us as we join the Clean Energy Compact. So I would love to hear any comments that you all have about adding in large businesses or how to expand this to include families, other businesses in the future, what you see. And I know we may not have definitives, Maggie, on that, but anything you have to share would be appreciated.
To address a few items I heard earlier was, one, would Sustainable Tallahassee merely be in a voluntary capacity for all of this workload that they'll be taking on should the compact get momentum and move forward? They are a nonprofit, but do expect to be profited. And as a reminder, we do financially, Leon County supports Sustainable Tallahassee on an annual basis for just over $8,000, I believe, annually. So we've discussed informally that next year's funding would holistically go to getting this off the ground and supporting their initial time and effort. Should there be further financial connections to support Sustainable Tallahassee, that would be a discussion held with you as a commission. To your point, Commissioner Dozier, and those made by citizens, the plan for inclusive involvement. This is both inclusiveness of businesses, but also citizens more broadly, smaller entities. If I can provide just a little bit of background, and I'll be brief. Ourselves as Leon County staff in partnership with Sustainable Tallahassee did a lot of research and reflection on models, approaches. There was good-hearted debates and looking at it from both sides. And there is no single best method. There is no single perfect model. We did collectively agree that we did not want to result with a document that simply lived on a shelf. Reports that live on a shelf and those efforts. We also collectively agreed that all efforts must be measurable, actionable, and achievable. And when we look at those long-term goals, sometimes that's debatable what can be measurable, actionable, and achievable. But that's the core-centric focus of the compact as it moved forward in our initial ideas. Additionally, that collaboration is key. Those were the central components as we initially started our bulleted outline of where we would go from here. Typically, in the models we researched, for collaboration purposes, the membership was limited just to municipalities. Often it was a single county. At best, it was the county engaging the cities within its jurisdiction. We felt that was too small, too narrow, too limited for that collaboration. But equally right-sizing it. If it's too large, it may implode right before it even gets off the ground or anything meaningful happens. So we decided, led by Sustainable Tallahassee, that there'd be the limited efforts to, or limited key members of those top 10 that we've been mentioning, the TMH, the Chamber of Commerce, the public universities, City of Tallahassee, and so on. But also, very clearly, there does need to be engagement both from events, working groups, topic-specific efforts where there's smaller businesses, individuals can contribute where their expertise, where their ability to lean in, taking from Sheryl Sandberg, to lean in hard on what they can impact and what they can influence in the community. As Jim mentioned earlier, sustainability is a broad spectrum topic. I learned a new phrase in our research, the MUSH market, M-U-S-H, standing for municipalities, utilities, schools, and hospitals. That ended up being the framework of how we determined the initial core members or representative organizations is that MUSH market. That they also needed to have local representatives that could be impactful. Again, not a document that sits on a shelf, not an empty promise, but moving forward. And so our next steps is through the end of June, just like we're asking for consideration of you this evening, is for those 10 or so organizations, do you want to opt in or opt out? Are you leaning in or are you saying no thank you? And we're asking for your consideration of that question this evening. The other organizations are doing just that through the end of June. Once June comes to a close with those organizations that have chosen to opt in, collectively then at that point, Leon County steps back. We are just a co-equal member to all other entities that have opted in, and leadership will be fully focused with Sustainable Tallahassee going forward. At that point, collectively as a co-equal member, the Capital Area Sustainability Compact will then decide next steps, framework, outline, events, ways to bring in collaboration, but we felt it inappropriate for Leon County to crystallize an exact plan and say, are you in and out of our plan? We would like that to be, for it to be successful, for that to be collaborative. So it's been intentionally structured, but with that flexibility. And looking at my notes, I believe that addressed your questions, but happy to answer further comments.
No, that's fantastic, Maggie. I appreciate that. Like the issue we went through for an hour and a half before, nothing is perfectly or packaged every single time we get there. But I do appreciate the deference to this group, and that may not sit well with everyone. But again, this has been a long time coming, and we have to get it started. So I do appreciate your efforts and those and your answers there. I think as a county sitting on that executive committee, I think we can push for more inclusion and the experts and others. So I do really appreciate that. So I'm going to make a motion for staff recommendation, which is option 1, 2, and 3. That includes the greenhouse gas emission study for the county. But add to that, Mr. Chair, a request that the county administrator discuss with the city manager how we can partner with their approach to the clean energy plan, bring us back an update with where the city is with their consultant, how we can work together on that, and some dialogue about the date so that we can have another discussion about this specifically on the clean energy commitment. So compact moving forward, but I'd like to say bring back an update on the clean energy component. Does that work for you, Mr. County Administrator? Okay, that would be my motion, Mr. Chair.
Motion been made by Commissioner Dozier for staff recommendation as amended. Is there a second to that motion? Motion seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Pratt, you have the floor. The first thing you have to do, though, is regurgitate everything Commissioner Dozier just said.
I agree.
I took all of his time for him, so.
Ditto. One word, ditto.
Commissioner Pratt, the floor is yours.
I was wanting to hear Commissioner Dozier because these are things that she gets it the first time, and I don't. Commissioner Lindley and I, we had our gathered scientific minds together and looked at option 3, which was to authorize staff to proceed with a new greenhouse gas inventory of county operations. And we were trying to decide, was brown gas included, or blue gas, pink gas, or what was the greenhouse? And we didn't even understand what the greenhouse was. So I think we determined that methane had something to do with it, and cows, okay, and all like that. So I was pondering what Attorney Hendricks said, and it sounded like Attorney Hendricks did not stand up as representing the local Democratic Party, but much more that the issue that he indicated was he was issuing a scientific objection that a wider group of scientists had not been engaged in. I think I heard him say that there was an issue that this matter before us had only been made public six days ago. Did I hear you say that, sir? 6 days ago. And so his ask was, could we potentially wait for 30 days that they might, the groups of scientists might get a chance. But if unilaterally we alone speak for everybody, and as Commissioner Dozier said, that we would then relinquish and allow this to be an equal facility once we have decided. But I hear Mr. Hendricks' comments today is that can we allow other voices to come back to us. He also indicated that there was no money that had been articulated or expressed in this agreement, or nothing designated over the horizon that would say that we were putting our monies where our PAC is, and that would be needed. The reference that the city of utility had not been referenced, gives me pause. And I think that in the PACT agreement, Maggie, I was wondering if the magnetic lab, what they do, is that like clean energy? I don't know, but it's just a question I have. I don't know. I was wondering whether the Governor Square Mall and the Tallahassee Mall were significant enough carbon print. I think I've heard that word somewhere. Did they count and stuff? So those are my concerns. I don't know where the commission is, but I am open to and empathetic to the science community. Mr. Bibler raised excellent points, and I like that. And I think also that what we don't want to miss is because of the fear that has been imposed on Florida's Environmental Protection Agency, that I believe that Leon County must intellectualize the environmental issue. And I think that when the state agencies and leaders have been told there's certain words that you can't say, there's certain things you can't intellectualize if you work for the state of Florida. And that's just hell to pay if you do. So I think that we have the wherewithal to pick up the slack, if you will. But certainly that would need to be inclusive voices. And the ask today is not that we stop, not that we not go forward, but we allow, Mr. Administrator, for, and there's been a terrible neglect. I mean, an unimaginable about face to knowledge, to science. And science has taken such a beat down in recent years and has been a victim of political molestation, in my mind. And to see science continue to be molested with the most inane of thoughts, it's hard to hold your peace. I think that Tallahassee, Leon County can do a major work. We have major scientists. And if, who made the motion? Commissioner? And if Commissioner Dozier is open to those comments of our receiving the report, but, well, can we do both? But allowing for the report maybe for a month to give science a chance to weigh in, look at the compact. There's 5 sections here, and they're relatively mild. Unless there's a problem to you, Commissioner, I'd like to ask if we could amend your thing to motion to allow for it to go back so that others can know it had a 6-day exposure. And a 6-day exposure, 3 of those days it was raining last week. You got washed out, so they couldn't come together because, environmentally speaking, they couldn't come together in all that rain.
Commissioner Proctor, I appreciate your comments, and I believe I got some nods over here, so I think I was on the right track. That I did request in my motion that we have the clean energy component come back, and that was really what Mr. Hendrick were leaning in on for that piece. Is that was correct? The 2035 date, working with the city, how we reach a goal of clean energy by a certain date. That's what we want more dialogue on, and what you were referencing the 6 days with. So that is part of the motion, to ask the county administrator to talk to the city and to bring us back an update on that. While the expertise and a more inclusive or more expansive role of the compact of that committee, I completely agree with all those comments. I do think it is in the best posture we've got right now as a starting point, and I'd like to move forward with that the way it is. with us continuing to push that compact forward to be more inclusive, and and Maggie just articulated this, they have plans to think through the engagement of experts, public, others like that. So if that helps Commissioner Proctor,
No.
that is part of the motion.
Like I said, Mr. Chairman, I knew Dozier had it. She understands this, and I agree. 2 thumbs up on that.
You are in an awesome mood tonight, Mr. Chair. I love it.
I hadn't had anything to eat in 20 hours.
Oh, well, that would do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Motion on the floor made by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by, I believe, Commissioner Lindley, is for staff recommendation as amended. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Commissioner Dozier.
I am just totally thrown off here. Has Alan Rosenzweig ever sat on the dais with us?
He has not.
What? Wow.
It made me nervous.
Alan.
It made me nervous.
Let's get a drum roll.
No, this is this is an extremely special moment in the Long family.
It is, Mr. Chair. I thought we should recognize that. Thank you.
Yes. To those who may be wondering why Alan Rosenzweig is sitting beside me.
Why is he sitting beside you, Mr. Chair?
Straighter. Kellen Long, Commissioner, the county administrator's oldest son is graduated from high school today, and his graduation is tonight. So our county administrator had to rush over. Congratulations, Kellen. We wish you well. I believe he's going to be a Seminole next year, I believe. All excited about that. Go Noles, go Noles. So our county administrator took off. I mean, he left the commission in the very able hands of our deputy county administrator, Mr. Rosenzweig. Mr. Rosenzweig, would you like to introduce item number 26?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, as requested by the board at your last meeting, this agenda item seeks approval to rename Lake Henrietta Park to the Anita L. Davis Preserve at Lake Henrietta Park in honor of former Leon County Commissioner Anita Davis.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Rosenzweig talked faster than
I'm sorry, Mr. Commissioner. I'll go a little slow for you, sir. I'm sorry. I'll repeat that now so I can do this twice. So when Vince watches the tape later, he'll see me going slow. Commissioners, as requested by the board at your last meeting, this agenda item seeks approval to rename Lake Henrietta Park to the Anita L. Davis Preserve at Lake Henrietta Park in honor of former Leon County Commissioner Anita Davis. The item includes the information related to county policy for such namings, which the board has great latitude to make upon an affirmative vote of the commission, as well as the information on former Commissioner Anita Davis. Commissioner, the proposed renamer complies with all county policy, and staff recommends option 1.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. I thank the commission for making the motion and seconding this coming forward. It's a very special moment for us, for all the reasons that are in the agenda item, with all the accomplishments that Commissioner Davis has accomplished in her time in Leon County, especially on this commission. I'd like to recognize our NAACP president and historian, Delatry Hollinger, who actually had a conversation with me about this. Very exciting. I am going to reach out to Ms. Davis, or former Commissioner Davis, to tell her about what we're doing here tonight. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a District 1 Commissioner successor of Ms. Davis, I just want to note that her service, her name, her generosity to our community certainly extends well beyond being a county commissioner. I think that county commissioner does capture a part of her legacy, but indeed her contributions is extensive. And it's in the spirit of being her successor that I would like to, and appreciate you allowing me to make the motion that we would approve the renaming of Lake Henrietta Park to the Anita L. Davis Preserve at Lake Henrietta Park in honor of former Leon County Commissioner Anita Davis.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Motion has been made by Commissioner Proctor to accept staff recommendation on item number 26. Commissioner Deloge, I'm going to let you second it, but you know I wanted to. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, all those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries 5-0 with Commissioner Daly, Commissioner Dozier, or 6-0 with Commissioner Daly out of chambers. Again, the special moment right there for former Commissioner Davis. Even more special that we would have District 1 and District 4 make those motions. Thank you very, very much, gentlemen. We'll move on now to we have no scheduled public hearings, so citizens to be heard on non-agenda items. I believe we have one. I'll go ahead and Ms. Williams, come on up. I had a conversation with Ms. Williams this week. She wanted to inform us of a letter of support that she needs from us to go to the
Florida Housing Finance Corporation.
Yeah. Basically, what she's going to explain to you, and I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of it, is in larger counties, the way the decision is made where tax credits go is through local decision. They get to say exactly where they want that money to go. With medium-sized and small-sized counties, it's a very different thing. We don't get involved in those decisions at all. And so, if you could fill in the rest of that conversation, what she's asking today is a letter of support.
Chairman, I move a letter of support for the Tallahassee Housing Authority in support of their application with that agency that they're seeking.
Letter of support has been moved by Commissioners Proctor. I'll second as Chair, Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was actually given a heads up on this as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Brenda, welcome. I would love to hear from Brenda or any
Yes.
other explanation if you would like, but I am more than comfortable with this. I think it's part of our work jointly with the city, with Tallahassee Housing, with others to move this forward. So thank you very much for inviting Brenda with us. But if there's anything else you need to share, please.
No, great. Brenda, would you share a little bit? But one thing that I like most about this, and I don't understand why the state isn't already doing this for everybody, is the local control of it. Yeah. I mean, in larger counties, they get to basically pick where those tax credit dollars are going. I don't understand why we wouldn't have the same kind of ability to do so here. Fill us in on the points that I did not make, Ms. Williams.
Okay, actually what's going on is normally tax credits awards are made via a lottery. And that lottery could consist of up to 100, 150 applications. A couple of years ago, the Florida Housing Finance Corporation made a decision to allow the large counties to make local decisions regarding tax credit awards in their local municipalities. They have not veered from the large counties, but there's a possibility on June the 12th that the Housing Finance Corporation will consider this preference for small to medium counties. And if they decide to move forward, we believe that our application will certainly have a very good chance of receiving an award so that we can move forward with the redevelopment of the Orange Avenue property.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something?
Yeah, please.
I have attended several of the meetings that have been with the developers, and the presentations have been at the Orange Avenue open house and the showings, the renderings.
Yes, sir.
And it's been very spirited. I was at the last Tallahassee Housing Authority board meeting where the audit report from last year, it was an outstanding audit. I mean, this has nothing to do with what she's saying right now, but the fact that the auditor's report from previous years, the past audit, they got an outstanding clean bill of health, and I'm really excited. And I think that the more that Ms. Williams and her organization and board have focused to transform and change the area, it just makes sense that we lend support and try to get shoulder to shoulder as that snowball is gaining momentum. And I think that she's doing a great job. The morale has never been better that I've seen. The people, the tenants who live there, the association, there's a very positive vibe right now. So given the morale of the community, the vibe of the citizens who are living there, the board support that she has, the clean audit that she's received, Ms. Williams is doing an outstanding job and has been a visionary, unlike any that we've seen before. So I really respect that work, and I think that we should, this shouldn't have to take a long speech, but I think we should get behind what Ms. Williams is doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Is there any objection to the letter of support? Seeing none, we're sure it's accepted. Thank you. We'll work on
If
that
I could just add that I'll be back at the June 19th meeting with our developer partner
Great.
and purpose-built communities to provide a detailed presentation of the master plan.
Thank you. I want to thank you so much for working with the developer as well as Purpose Built. I know I've spoken about it over and over again, but I was really impressed when I took those trips to see their communities. I'm glad that this community was able to have Purpose Built come in, but there are more steps that we have to take. I think they're still in their evaluation period, as I believe, and still, you know, we've invited them, but they have to accept invitation. And so anything we can do to help.
It's looking good.
Well, good. Anything else we can do to help them go ahead and accept that invitation, let us know. I'm pretty sure this commission as well as the city will be willing to help out any way we can.
Also, if I could show you what the master plan is it looks like, you should get a copy of it this week by the end of the week.
Thank you so much.
Brenda, I'm running for re-election. I need to get a copy of that real quick.
I do want to put the commission on notice here in that Orange Avenue, in my opinion, is just a start. I would like to duplicate this around the community and all of our housing authority properties. Specifically, I got a real eye on Joe Louis next. Those communities deserve this type of development. If you look at what that paper or what that book has in it, it's amazing how it's going to transform that community. And the one thing about it is just the fact that gentrification is not even something that can happen within those communities, because the people who live in the housing authority and in Orange Avenue apartments right now will have the first right of refusal to come right back. And there has to be enough dwellings in that property to make sure that 100% of those folks can come right back to where they left to enjoy the improvements that we've made to it. That's what I call affordable housing at its best, and us putting our folks in a place where they're really getting the help that they need in order to change the community that they live in. Heard a speaker maybe a couple years ago, I think may have spoke at a Florida State event or chamber event. She said you shouldn't have to change your zip code to change your situation. And I'm hoping we can accomplish that by doing these types of things, not only on Orange Avenue, but also in Joe Louis. And I appreciate the Housing Authority doing what they're doing to help us out and making those strides. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so at the end of the agenda, we're at Commissioner discussion time. Mr. Attorney? Did you vote on that motion? Oh, no, we just said without objection. Okay. There was no objection to it. Mr. Attorney?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Administrator?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Look at you.
Oh, no.
Off to a good start.
Don't let him get off like that. He has to tell us something.
Oh, man. Commissioner Lindley?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Commissioner Dozier?
Remarkable, Mr. Chair. I've got nothing tonight. Thank you all for a good meeting. I guess I will say I'm really, we always say these things, but proud of this board, proud of our county, but I just really appreciate the robust, honest discussion on CSC tonight on the Children's Service Council, and I look forward to continuing that in June. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I'm requesting that we agenda an item that's coming to us. It's called the HELP Program, Hardship Employment for Low-Income People. It's being presented by Mr. Stanley Sims, who's the director of the HELP Program, and I've met with him. His proposal was presented to Assistant City Manager, Mrs. Cynthia Barber, and I seek your support in our agendaing this particular matter. I pass it now.
Agenda item has been asked for by Commissioner Partners to look at the HELP program.
HELP program?
Yeah, HELP program, just an agenda item looking at it. That HELP program is proposed by Mr. Stanley Sims. Is there a second to that motion for the agenda item? Is there a second to the motion for the agenda item? I'll second for the purposes of discussion. Commissioner Proctor, just real quick, what exactly are we talking about? Matter of fact, Commissioner Dozier, you go first.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate Commissioner Proctor's interest in this. I've talked to Mr. Sims. I believe he's been talking with others, perhaps. This is, to me, if there is something to look at in Mr. Sims' proposal, it needs to fit within one of our various programs. I'm not sure what we would look at in an agenda item, Commissioner Proctor. So I think I would need more information in order to support that. What I saw wasn't in line with funding requests or anything like that from the county. I'm not sure, maybe you've heard additional information, but perhaps you could talk with our staff or someone else if needed, but I'm not sure what the goal of an agenda item is.
Okay. Commissioner Pratt, you got a response?
Well, Mr. Sims met with me a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and actually at the our last meeting, I simply forgot to bring it up. So it's been 2 weeks since we met, and it was a little time before. So on this particular point, my recollection is a little mired. But he has presented this to the city, and I think is looking for a desire to gain our support, perhaps collaboration, and all of those things. I apologize to the commission that I can't remember from 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I just don't have that.
Commissioner Proctor, just looking at it, this is a proposal for, is this a funding request, or is this just, does he just want to tell us about his program?
It may be a little bit of both, but because I want the commission to be on good footing, perhaps this is an opportunity for either him to come before us to explain the ask, or either for staff to review it and sit down and try to discover what attributes of the proposal may actually stimulate our desire to put it on our agenda.
Interesting. Commissioner Lindley.
I just wonder if we might invite him to just come and just speak to us briefly in the unagended items portion, so we could at least all hear from him roughly what he's interested in.
Okay. That's not a problem. I simply, as a policy, I have somewhat of an open door if a person from our community wants a matter agenda taken up by the board.
And maybe we would do an agenda item later. I mean, if we got a feel for more of the substance of it. I hate to put the...
Just real quick, to put in perspective, Commissioner Lindley, real quick, this is a $331,000 proposal that I'm holding in my hand. I think you may be right. I think you may be in the right place where maybe we have, because if it came back on the 19th, maybe if we first had a, what's I'm looking for? Presentation. Untimed presentation, so he could tell us about this, and at that point we could talk about whether or not this board wants to take it to an agenda item, because I'm sure everybody up here doesn't know enough about this right now to say that we want to go straight to an agenda item. I had heard a little bit about it, but didn't really know as much about it as I should at this point to put a $331,000 proposal as an agenda item. So is it okay if we did a presentation?
I think so. I think that he's capable of representing himself. And we'll ask him to come and present.
Yes. So could the motion on the floor be that that we invite Mr. Sims to give a presentation about his HELP program to this commission?
So moved.
Motion been made by Commissioner Proctor. I'll continue to second that motion. Commissioner Dozier.
Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Proctor, I also took the time. Gary and I met with Mr. Sims for a while and talked about this issue, and I believe others have, as I said. Two things. One, I think the goals, his desire is ambitious, and it is from the heart. We have just funded a Ready for Work program through the Public Safety Service Commission. So we have been receptive of programs like this, but it is our policy to run these requests through grant programs if we have them, or to look at it. We've been very strategic about that. I do not think it's fair to other organizations to tee up something like this. And when I read through the documents, it was not ready. I have no idea what our staff would do with this in an agenda item if we had one. So I cannot support the motion right now, but I fully support Mr. Sims sending us all an email with details. I suggested he flesh this out a little bit more, or coming in on unagenda speakers, and at that point we can request an agenda item. I'm not prepared to ask staff to do any work on this at this point because I don't know where the appropriate place for it is, and I did meet with him. So I need a lot more before I can support it, but I would strongly encourage him to send us a detailed email with what his proposal is, what he's asking for, and to come in on unagenda speakers, as Commissioner Lindley mentioned.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, is that the chair's direction as well?
Not really. I was asking him to come give a presentation that will be at the beginning of the agenda after we finish our awards. Presentations will be after. Honestly, I mean, either he can come give a presentation to us, or he can sit down with staff. I don't know enough about this right now to elevate it to the level of an agenda item. I'm not sure that we even have. Yeah, I'm kind of where Commissioner Dozier is in that programs we usually send to CHSP. We usually send through CHSP or the process that you just went through, Commissioner Proctor, with the Public Safety Coordinating Council. This would have been a great proposal for them to take up, but I'm not sure that and since I've been here, I'm not sure that we funded, maybe a letter of support, but I'm not sure we funded something like this outside of our budget I'm just not sure we've done that. So I was thinking presentation. I think maybe it probably should have started at staff level to have staff look at it, have a conversation, and maybe, bring it back for agenda item then. But when I talked to the Deputy County Administrator, he said he knew nothing of it as well. So,
you talking about Alan Rosenblatt?
He said he had never seen it, and I believe him. So it's like, for us to elevate something like this to an agenda item that staff has never seen, so my ask was for a presentation, and that was the motion that you made, and I seconded. But it's up.
Well, I mean, he can come down here and talk for 3 minutes. I mean, anybody can.
No, that presentation I was asking for was untimed.
I understand, but untimed. I heard you. Okay.
And Commissioner Lindley was asking for 3 minutes. I was saying give him time to present his item. But Commissioner Proctor, the motion is yours. I'm your second.
I mean, I don't feel support here. I will simply tell Pastor Sims to come and try to convince the rest of us in 3 minutes.
Okay.
A lot can happen in 3 minutes.
So you withdrawing your motion?
Somebody said it only takes a minute, girl, to fall in love. Yeah,
you withdraw your motion for presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
only takes a minute, girl.
I don't know if we ever sent an invitation. If you could, Commissioner Proctor, just ask him to come on out and present.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I would suggest that he probably presented it during the second portion of our non-agenda speakers, where we can have Commissioner comment.
You're my leader. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Proctor? That's it. All right. Mr. Vice Chair.
Nothing from me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Loge.
You think? I mean, I'd just like to throw a little fear factor out there. I sent our administrator a note and said it passed 7-0. Good discussion. Sometimes you're the bug, and sometimes you're the windshield.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Very proud of the conversation we had today. Good meeting. I'm sorry I got a little bit delirious afterwards. I'm trying this new intermittent fasting thing. I don't know if it's working or not. But good meeting today. We'll move right along and see you guys at our next board meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned.